Chapter 196. What chains? Other than Hiyuain in the encrypted channel, everyone else was baffled. Although Cat Eyes knew what was going on, it was very complicated for her to clearly describe it. She could only give a simple explanation: it's an application technique of Mr. Luo's on the mental plane. This explanation confused the technique and nature of Luo Nan's ability, but no one could point it out. Fortunately, Fairchild had his own opinions. He was not affected by the encrypted channel. He spoke slowly with a deep and vigorous voice. Looking at your chains is like looking at an airtight prison. Rules, laws, temperance, control. It possesses a pleasantly surprising sense of order. I really like it. This kind of evaluation, this kind of form, made everyone feel very surprised. It was like praise, but it was also like idle chatter. It caused the tense atmosphere to gradually ease up. This was a very good start. The problem was that everyone could see that Luo Nan was not good at this kind of situation. His reactions were very slow. He actually missed the best opportunity to communicate. He faced Fairchild directly and did not make any response even when Fairchild's voice completely dissipated in the room. He maintained his silence from beginning to end. From the perspective of a group of onlookers, the atmosphere eased up for less than 2 seconds before turning awkward and stiff once more. Everyone in the encrypted channel beat their chests and stomped their feet. What a waste of an opportunity. Cat Eyes felt it even more clearly. She was a bit anxious and took a step forward, wanting to negotiate with Fairchild in Luo Nan's place. But when she took this step and was halfway in front of Luo Nan, Cat Eyes suddenly choked up. The words she had prepared were inexplicably unable to come out of her mouth. Her momentum weakened by a third. It was not easy for her to speak, so she unconsciously changed her words. Mr. Fairchild, we believe that all of this is a misunderstanding. We accidentally encountered this filthy secular exchange while we were chasing the human-faced arachnid. We are also trying to stop it. Fairchild remained expressionless. He did not even glance at Cat Eyes. He just replied with a proverb: when truth stands at the forefront, the secular should retreat. Cat Eyes opened her mouth, but she suddenly felt speechless. It was not just because of Fairchild's cold words. More directly, it was because she suddenly discovered that under the awkward and stiff atmosphere, there was something more direct and... This chapter is not finished. Please turn the page. A dangerous undercurrent. The undercurrent surged on the mental plane. Moreover, it was a deep region that Cat Eyes found very difficult to perceive. It was only when Fairchild opened his mouth that a large fluctuation occurred in the mental attack, allowing Cat Eyes to peek at part of the truth. The sound of the heavily chained crow continued to reverberate. It was filled with the smell of danger and danger. This allowed Cat Eyes to confirm that Luo Nan and Child were engaged in an invisible contest right next to her. And she actually knew nothing about it. Cat Eyes did not know when this contest began or how long it lasted, but at this moment, she truly felt that she was an outsider, and a blind one at that. In the encrypted channel, Bamboo Pole noticed a problem. Stand at the front? It seems like Fairchild really does look at Luo Nan differently. Cat Eyes did not reply. She was still recovering from the scars of the attack. After all, Bamboo Pole did not understand the situation and could only make wild guesses. That won't do. Fairchild has already made his stance clear. If we don't get a response and don't meet his expectations, no one knows what he'll do. How is Mr. Shaman's theoretical research? Between soul studies and philosophy, which one is better? Also, you can't get entangled in techniques when it comes to communication. At Fairchild's level, he can completely distinguish all lies. Just speak normally. Say whatever you want. I'll give it a try. Luo Nan's sudden response stupefied everyone in the encrypted channel. Actually, Luo Nan had been paying attention to the information in the encrypted channel all this time. He was very clear about the things that Bamboo Pole, Red Fox, and the others were discussing and worrying about. Luo Nan and Fairchild were indeed still confronting each other on the mental plane, using this special method to communicate. However, this did not mean that Luo Nan was satisfied with this. He actually did not feel too good. Due to the continuous use of soul strength, the pressure his body endured was gradually increasing. Soreness, pain, stiffness. His nervous system transmitted all sorts of negative effects to every part of his body. They were fed back one by one, forming a vicious cycle that continued to increase. If a simple verbal exchange could satisfy everything, why would he need to take this unnecessary risk? However, Luo Nan really did not know what to say. His mind spun round and round, but no matter how he thought, he was unable to find a perfect response. He knew nothing. Please continue to the next page if this chapter is not finished. Tao. How could communication between people be perfect in every aspect? In the end, his fear and suppression had taken the upper hand. Furthermore, he had the goal of stalling for time, so he was limited in every aspect. Bamboo pole's reminder gave him some direction. What did he want to say the most right now when faced with Fairchild's evaluation? Luo Nan stared at Fairchild's callous and calm face. A few seconds passed before he took a deep breath and spoke softly, "Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Fairchild. We're done for." The channel was filled with sorrowful cries. Luo Nan had responded immediately after Fairchild spoke, but it was not too bad. Just how long did he need to react to thank Fairchild? The channel was too chaotic. He Yueyin, who had not spoken for a long time, simply cleared the screen. She did not need to do anything. Luo Nan had already given up on referring to the contents of the channel. He just said what he wanted to say. This is one of the results of my grandfather's research. I call it, my heart's a prison, the prison of a prison. Based on the foundation of formatting theory. If there was anything in this world that could cause Luo Nan to talk endlessly, then it would be his grandfather's achievements. His grandfather's formatting theory. After all, this was the result of his entire 5 years of blood, sweat, and tears. However, Child was not here to listen to his science. After 2 or 3 sentences, he cut to the chase and began a formal conversation. It's very good to have a special structure and function in a wonderful way. But physical training is terrible. Is it because of the lack of a system? This was a criticism of my heart's a prison. Luo Nan knew that Child was right, but at this moment, he felt that he needed to reciprocate. Mr. Child's mental storm also lacks order. It lacks a sense of rhythm. As soon as he said that, everyone in the encrypted channel went silent. They couldn't even utter a single word. Why did he suddenly become angry? When he finally came back to his senses, the channel was filled with notifications. Steady. Just bear with it for now. They don't have any ill intentions. Don't argue, or you'll be at a disadvantage. Unfortunately, Luo Nan had already completely ignored the opinion of the encrypted channel at this time. He followed the previous words and said, "What's the reason?" "It's too late. I can only make adjustments." Chapter 198. Luo Nan thought of Roy when the moment he opened his mouth. That night, when Roy broke through the encirclement of the deep blue walkers, her strength had seamlessly switched from the material plane to the mental plane. Luo Nan would never forget the formation of an absolute explosive force and the incomparable changes in tempo. Luo Nan had never truly experienced Fairchild's strength, but Roy was above him in terms of tempo coordination. It was precisely because of the lack of a harmonized rhythm that the pressure Fairchild exerted on him during the confrontation on the mental plane was erratic and intermittent. The impact of the mental storm was very difficult to achieve Roy Wen's explosive power. Compared to the Blood Flame Order's elder Mo Luan, it was much weaker. But was the difference between Fairchild, Roy Wen, and Mo Luan that obvious? Even if he did not compare Roy Wen, why did he feel that the boldness of this Ears of Truth was above that of Mo Luan? This was Luo Nan's doubt. If Luo Nan used pure words to express himself, he might not be able to express himself clearly when it came to all sorts of backgrounds and secrets. But Fairchild only used 2 or 3 sentences. Fairchild's response was even simpler. Reason? He simply repeated a word and then took a step forward. With this one step, the entire luxurious room seemed to tremble. This was not an illusion. The equipment, the furnishings, and the people standing, sitting, kneeling, and lying in the room all trembled slightly. The 3 destroyed robots even let out rattling sounds. A dazzling halo of light spread from Fairchild's chest. It instantly enveloped his entire body and illuminated the entire room. Every corner of the room was completely devoid of shadows. Even the finest hair could be seen. It was at this moment that information exploded in the encrypted channel. Ah. The shield of truth. He's gone crazy. He's going to fight without saying a word. He's really courting death. He's done for. Where's the negotiation? Where's the backup? Kitty, run. Faster. Faster. Cat Eyes subconsciously took a step back, but she did not make any further movements. This was because Luo Nan did not move a single inch when facing Fairchild's terrifying pressure. At most, he coughed twice. The pressure on Luo Nan's body grew even greater, but that was all there was to it on the mental plane. Please turn the page if this chapter is not finished. Child. He narrowed his eyes slightly and looked at Fairchild. The dazzling sound and light effects. As Fairchild released his aura, the surrounding environment was inevitably affected. It was no longer just the luxurious room that was trembling. The entire Frost River reality seemed to be trembling. Was Child going to make a move? Luo Nan didn't think so. At this moment, what appeared in front of him was an energy and information operation structure built with his physical body as the foundation. Due to the limitations of the material plane, the structure was not as intuitive as the spiritual plane. The details could not be seen clearly, but the general principle was still clearly presented. The material plane and the mental plane pushed and interfered with each other, forming a vortex that existed on both the material plane and the mental plane at the same time, forming a dynamic yet stable structure. Child's spirit and body were one in the structure, supporting and interacting with each other. This was Child's reply. Perhaps it was very difficult for him to realize the rhythm of Roy Wen's body and soul merging and harmonizing, but the state of his body and soul had established a stable and powerful structure. The feeling he gave off was like an atomic furnace that contained enormous power. The mental and material interfered with each other inside, colliding intensely. Yet they operated in precise coordination, perfect and perfect. Luo Nan was speechless for a time. Only now did he truly understand the level of Child's power. It far surpassed anyone Luo Nan had ever seen. If he had not seen it with his own eyes, Luo Nan would find it hard to imagine that a human with a mortal body could actually accumulate such astonishing energy within their body. In the end, the attack and defense on the mental plane and the storm set off were just the overflowing heat from this atomic furnace. Similarly, if Child's answer were to be translated into words, it would take 1,000 words to completely understand. Just one step was enough for Luo Nan to understand everything clearly. The foundation of the exchange between the two was precisely the confrontation on the mental plane. The heavily chained crow and the mental storm, one defensive and one offensive, collided and probed at each other every moment. All they needed to do was to repeat some of the situations that occurred during their exchange using words. Compared to the reality of the plane, perhaps it was closer to the original intentions of the two. Luo Nan had to admit that he was very suited for this sort of exchange. It was simple and direct, saving him a lot of meaningless words. This chapter is not over. Please turn the page. There was no need to express any attitude. All intentions were clearly revealed through the mutual collision and probing on the mental plane. The only problem was that this sort of exchange was too strenuous. Luo Nan's soul could withstand it, but this did not mean that his body could. So, he tried to use more words to translate. First, he needed to apologize for Child's misjudgment of the mental storm. I'm sorry. However, I don't think that my grandfather's theory isn't systematic. This situation only occurred because of the choice of method and the lack of depth of understanding in his early years. Everything else didn't matter. There was only one point: and that was Child's evaluation of formatting theory's lack of systematicness. This made Luo Nan very dissatisfied. The format of My Heart's a Prison was the result of systematic research. However, Luo Nan had chosen a dangerous method. He used psychotropic drugs to gradually correct the format of his nervous system, ultimately obtaining this ability. He had neglected the problem of his body during this process. This was also because he had not truly understood the essence of the formatting and the operational structure of energy and information in the past 5 years. He believed that if he was given the time to start over, he would be able to coordinate his soul and body better. At the very least, he would not be in such an extreme state of imbalance. As Luo Nan defended himself, he used his finger to point and gesture at Child's body. This further clarified the focus of his mental clairvoyance. It was the cranial nerves, the spinal nerves, and the nodes that Luo Nan had figured out over the past week. If he had been able to give these areas additional stimulation and training in the past 5 years, the results might have been completely different. What the hell is he doing? Is he apologizing or is he defending himself? What's up with his grandfather's theory? Does anyone know? The group of enthusiastic people in the encrypted channel were all stupefied. Luo Nan's words were incoherent, and he was gesticulating. Anyone who saw it would feel that it was incomprehensible. It was completely unreasonable. They thought to themselves that if they were in Luo Nan's shoes, they would certainly slap the ball to death. But looking at the current situation, Child did not make a move. Not only did he not make a move, but his dark gray eyes were focused on Luo Nan. He looked extremely focused. What was this? An exchange between a madman and a fanatic? They were surprisingly in tune. Chapter 199. It was already 8 o'clock in the evening. The rain was still falling endlessly from the sky. Bamboo Pole held an umbrella as he walked leisurely on the main street. On the side of the road, an enchanting beauty was grumbling to her companion in a low voice. Aside from the annoying autumn rain, there was also the slight earthquake just now. Bamboo Pole kept turning his head until the enchanting beauty's figure disappeared into the depths of the stream of people. If he did not have a mission tonight, he would not have minded a beautiful, street encounter. As for the beginning of the conversation, there was no harm in saying, actually, it wasn't an earthquake just now. It was just two brothers with mental issues having a heated conversation. At this moment, Fairchild's voice came from the hex ear. Your order is reflected in your soul. My order is reflected in my fleshly body. We have only completed one side of the problem while hoping to fix the flaw on the other side. The only difference is that I can continue to search for a solution, just like your chains. But you must first complete a difficult surgery and make a systematic correction. The error lies in the theory or in the choice. It will not change the result. This was the longest Fairchild had said tonight. Bamboo Pole found the feeling of being a kindred spirit funny and strange when he heard it. Hold on. Fairchild was implying that he was very interested in Luo Nan's My Heart's a Prison format? Forget about anything else. As long as this conversation got out, the name of Mr. Psychic and his formatting theory would certainly soar. It would resound throughout Xia City. But was that thing really that useful? Bamboo Pole walked into Yulan Hotel with doubts. He took the elevator straight to the 89th floor. This was a restaurant. At a table by the window, a young man wearing a red jacket waved at him. Hey buddy, the best spot. It only costs 20 credits. Bamboo Pole curled his lips and walked over to sit down. The best spot is a block away. Kitty will be happy to trade places with you. That being said, when he looked through the drizzled glass window, he could still clearly see the triangular indoor playground 2 kilometers away. Red Fox grinned with an odd expression. The feeling of the 3 buildings swaying together was really cool. The spaceship is about to take off. The layout of Frost River Reality was very interesting. The entire building spanned across 3 independent buildings, each occupying a portion of the floor. The entire building was painted in the interwoven colors of space black and silver white. It was like a large triangular alien spaceship that was inserted into the city. It seemed as though it could fly into space at any time. Just a few minutes ago, Child had released the Shield of Truth. It was an exaggeration to say that it had shaken 3 buildings, but the strong sense of oppression that spanned the mental and material planes and radiated to the surrounding area covered a surprisingly wide area. Along the way, Bamboo Pole encountered pedestrians everywhere who thought it was an earthquake. Roughly estimating, the radius had already exceeded 3 kilometers. It was truly monstrous. On the other hand, Luo Nan and Cat Eyes, who were in front of Fairchild, were not affected too much. Perhaps Fairchild really was looking at them differently. As a technician, Bamboo Pole was not like the Red Fox. Once he was on standby, he would have nothing to do. The moment he sat down, he took out the foldable flexible screen that never left his side and started working. With a few movements, he connected to the monitoring system of Frost River Reality and the surrounding buildings. Logically speaking, even if he was an expert in information electronics, this would still be very difficult to accomplish. However, the Society always had shares in Frost River Reality. They had quite a bit of relevant authority. Relying on the temporary authority Yuan gave him, it was relatively easy for him to do these things. Hundreds and thousands of monitoring images switched back and forth on the flexible screen. Only an ability user like Bamboo Pole, who had exceptional dynamic vision, was able to grasp the key information within. Red Fox stretched his head out to take a few glances. He was extremely puzzled. What's the point of doing all this right now? That freak Fairchild has a radius of 3 kilometers. That's a field of control of 30 square kilometers. Right now, we might even be the ones being monitored by him. Bamboo Pole did not even raise his head. He continued to filter through the images with his eyes. It's not that exaggerated. The resonance range of the Shield of Truth and the field of control are different. A ratio of 10 to 1 is already quite amazing. After all, it's a kind of cultivation where the body and soul are fused together. How can it be the same as mental senses? Oh, I forgot. You're an expert in the research of secret orders. Red Fox was the first to breathe a sigh of relief. That earthquake just now had really increased the pressure on him. He was feeling much better now. Don't relax too early. Fairchild has never been a high-profile character. Just now, he actually released the Shield of Truth without the slightest scruple to cover 30 square kilometers. He must have another goal. What's his goal? I don't know for now. Oh, there's a way. Hiss, this is troublesome. The monitoring images were constantly being cut down. The images of certain people were becoming more and more prominent. Bamboo Pole transferred these images to the psychic wave network. Then, he edited and annotated them before cutting into the encrypted channel. This was so that everyone involved in the operation could see it. Kitty, pay attention. The Order of Justice's secular side can't hold it in any longer. The Knights of Equity have already arrived, at least 2 small squads of 10 people. At least half of them have entered the field. Red Fox stared at the image and exclaimed, "Wow, do you see that piano case? I'll bet the points from this operation that it's definitely a large caliber sniper rifle. Otherwise, it would be impossible for it to pose any threat to Fairchild. They've already begun to occupy sniping spots. This is intolerable." The encrypted channel exploded once again. That's odd. No matter how dissatisfied the secular side was in the past, they were used to being cowards. What's going on this time? They want to start a religious war? The Order of Justice wants to split? That's really good news. The problem is that we've all become fish in the pond. Yuan's orders cut into the chaos. Bamboo Pole, Yulon Hotel is one of the best sniping spots in the neighborhood. It must be included in our monitoring. If it isn't necessary, avoid direct conflict with the people of the Order. Understood. I'm not a combatant. There was no temporary authority to use here. Bamboo Pole could not avoid personally making a trip to the central control room. He stood up and was about to move when Red Fox slapped his thigh. "Look, who's that?" "Zhang Yingying. That girl is participating in the operation? Why is she going over there?" Bamboo Pole was stunned. He hurriedly adjusted the monitoring image and saw Zhang Yingying and a tall beauty wearing a windbreaker walking side by side into Frost River reality. The two of them held each other's arms as they chatted and laughed along the way. They had an amiable demeanor and were very eye-catching. However, the windbreaker beauty's spiritual senses were very sharp. She suddenly turned her gaze towards the monitoring probe, meeting face to face with the people who were paying attention to her. Her dark chestnut-colored eyes were bright and beautiful. However, her expression, which seemed to be smiling yet not smiling, carried an indescribably deep meaning. Bamboo Pole inexplicably felt that this woman was familiar, but he could not recall where he had seen her before. Before he could finish his thought, Red Fox pushed him. "Look!" From their angle, they could see the low-altitude flying shuttle stop above the rooftop of Frost River reality. Yuan's tall and slender figure descended from the sky behind the blurry curtain of rain. "She told us to wait for orders." Chapter 200. The current Frost River reality was a bit different than usual. Around 8 o'clock in the evening was the time when Frost River reality was at its most bustling. At first glance, the reception hall seemed to be packed with people. However, most people were either heading out or hesitating. Fights, earthquakes, police intervention, and several batches of special forces had come. Plus, there were people being sent out to ambulances. No matter how big of a heart the players had, they would still feel apprehensive. The amusement park did not do anything about this. After Xue Weiluan and Yin Li's conversation, the group of managers no longer held any hope for tonight's revenue in the spirit of cooperating with the police. They let the police torment them. This was the scene Zhang Yingying saw when she entered Frost River reality. She could not help but sigh. If that earthquake monster came here, everyone in the reception hall would be dead. A group of ignorant and pathetic people. We knowingly violated it. So what? Bai Xinyan shrugged. It must be a moral model that keeps promises. Doctors have to be responsible for their patients. Zhang Yingying reached out to touch her face. The skin grafting technique of Luoyang City is amazing. It's 10 times thicker, isn't it? Bai Xinyan's eyelids fluttered. She turned to bite Zhang Yingying's fingertip. Zhang Yingying giggled and pulled back. Just as she was about to say something, her eardrums vibrated. A communication came through the hex ear. Hey, don't be too wasteful. How do you expect us men to endure this? Bamboo Pole, you peeping Tom. Zhang Yingying ground her teeth. You were the one controlling the camera just now, weren't you? It's a surveillance camera. I have to make sure you don't get wet while carrying out the mission. Speaking of which, didn't you guys feel such an obvious sign? You said, earthquake monster. Of course I know. But right now I'm accompanying a guest or picking someone up. White Salt has a patient here. White Salt? Bamboo Pole's voice suddenly rose an octave. Are you sure it's the one in the brown windbreaker next to you? TSK, I haven't seen her for a few years and her style has changed. My impression of her is that of a researcher in a white coat. Does she have a boyfriend? Zhang Yingying rolled her eyes. Another communication came through. Hello, Miss Zhang. Secretary He, Vice President He. Zhang Yingying's voice was clearly drawn out when she saw the caller ID. She did not have a good impression of this new acquaintance who had seen through her weak nature and forced her to train at the bottom of the sea. Zhang Yingying noticed that the moment the call connected, Bamboo Pole had cut off the connection. This gave her a rough idea. One wouldn't visit a temple without a reason. Contacting him at this time was probably the mission that Bamboo Pole had mentioned. It's time to put on airs. However, Yuan didn't have any intention of making friends and directly informed him of the current situation. Due to the lack of time, he didn't go into too many details and only introduced the main points. Only then did Zhang Yingying know which earthquake monster she had just heard was. Luo Nan is confronting child. Is he looking to die? At present, Fairchild will not harm him for the time being. However, in the coming conflict between the secular side and the truth side of the order of justice, it is very likely that he will be drawn into it. Right now, we need a few support points just in case. Can you join us? Zhang Yingying was speechless. The potential stock that he had introduced to the club now seemed to be a troublemaker who specialized in stirring up trouble. She didn't think about it for too long. She glanced at Bai Xinyan and said, I'm fine with joining, but I have a friend right now. Bai Xinyan? Huh? You know her? Bai Xinyan raised her eyebrows when she saw Zhang Yingying's gaze. In the next moment, her wristband vibrated. She saw the person she was contacting, and a smile blossomed on her face. Hello, sister. Long time no see. How are you doing? Zhang Yingying's eyes widened. She wanted to open her mouth to ask, but she saw Bai Xinyan and He Yueyin chatting happily. She could only gesture back and forth for a time. How do you know her? Bai Xinyan just blinked at Zhang Yingying. Then she gave He Yueyin a definite answer. No problem. I'm half a member of the society. Plus, I haven't been back to Xia City for a long time. I don't know how high the standards here are. It's good to have a chance to observe up close. However, she didn't completely comply with He Yueyin's arrangements. She paused for a moment and then said, Do you have a more proactive strategy? The situation right now is very chaotic. Who are our friends and who are our enemies? The most important problem is to clarify this. This conversation was not hidden from others. Bamboo Pole and the others who were participating in the operation could hear it through He Yueyin's channel. They were all deeply distressed. A hunting operation against the human-faced arachnid had turned into an encounter with the ears of truth, Fairchild. But right after that, it had turned into an internal conflict within the order of justice. The continuous shifting of contradictions left people at a loss as to what to do. They really were just here to surround the human-faced arachnid. But right now, powerful characters and powers were endlessly joining in, forming a giant maelstrom. The momentum grew fiercer and fiercer, and it looked as if there was no direction to speak of. These people felt a great deal of pressure even though they were just there to provide support. In reality, there were already people who were beating the drums of retreat. Red Fox's desire to fight had never been too strong. Right now, the order of justice is in a catfight. It's not appropriate for us to get involved, right? Most of the secret order are madmen. If an all-out war between the society and the order is ignited, then who will be responsible? Someone called Metal Box immediately appeared in the encrypted channel. He gave Red Fox's post a thumbs up. He had yet to arrive at Yulan Hotel, but he didn't want to come. The society's mission briefing still has the human-faced arachnid written on it. Where the hell is the human-faced arachnid? I just saw Fairchild. When the mission ends, how will the points be calculated? This mission is too unreliable. The Wilderness Explorers Society had never been an organization with a powerful binding force. It was very difficult for a group of ability users to truly follow orders and prohibitions. For example, during the operation against the human-faced arachnid last time, Black Beetle and He Yueyin had a disagreement and Black Beetle had simply withdrawn. Afterward, Black Beetle was unable to do anything to Black Beetle. What's more, the chaotic and ever-changing direction of the operation gave people an excuse to withdraw. With Red Fox and Metal Box mentioning it, even Bamboo Pole, who had fought together with Luo Nan, could not help but be moved. What about the others? Zhang Yingying had just entered the encrypted channel when she saw the scene of collapse. She was stupefied for a time. She turned to look at Bai Xinyan. She did not know what to say. Bai Xinyan was smiling as usual. She was not a member of the society. She did not have the hex ear, so she could not see the changes in the encrypted channel. Right now, she was waiting for He Yueyin to reply. However, before He Yueyin's reply could arrive, a a wave of commotion was transmitted from the activity area of Frost River reality. Attack. A terrorist attack. The special police in the luxury room of Area A have been attacked. Dead bodies litter the ground. The transmission of the information was not particularly clear in the beginning. However, at the entrance to Frost River reality, a man and a woman had just met. They were having a difficult conversation with each other. They were especially sensitive to this kind of information. After a moment of shock, the man did not say anything further. He buried his head and charged into the hall. The woman did not manage to pull him back. She cried out involuntarily. Shwele. Chapter 201. Inside the luxurious private room in Area A, Cat Eyes let out an irritated breath. She forced herself to shift her attention away from the chaos of the encrypted channel. But when her gaze turned to the two people in the private room who were still communicating with hand gestures, she felt that it was much more fun to quarrel in the encrypted channel. The entire situation was stirred into chaos by the whirlwind storm, but there were still some people in the center of the eye of the storm who didn't have the slightest awareness. There was no need to talk about Child. After all, he was one of the most powerful people in Summer City right now. He could be ranked as an extraordinaire. But the other person. What makes you think you can do this? Luo Nan unconsciously took a step forward in front of Cat Eyes. The distance between him and Child had already closed to within 3 steps. Luo Nan could practically reach out with his hand. In fact, Luo Nan really did reach out with his hand. His hand swung out at an angle. It seemed as if his hand had sliced past Child's head. Child's expression didn't change. He had an extremely serious and focused appearance. Luo Nan retracted his hand and spread it open again. That's waste heat. I agree with this description. Since it's waste heat, how can it be controlled? This is the problem I'm facing. My problem is a dangerous surgery, but it can be done in theory. Your problem is simply a logical error. How can it be done? Cat Eyes couldn't help but rub her forehead. She felt that Luo Nan and Child's thoughts had already entered a level that others were unable to comprehend. And they were sinking deeper and deeper. Luo Nan didn't care what other people thought. It was fine as long as he understood and Child understood. Luo Nan's original intention of using words to replace communication on the mental plane was already left behind without a trace, starting from whether or not formatting theory was systematic or not. He was convinced that this method of communication was indeed the most suitable for him. He and Child revolved around the core of the structure and order of the mental and material planes. They kept going deeper and deeper. The rules of the mental plane, the order of the material plane, the interference and influence between the two, the confusion of form and soul, the change of rhythm, and so on and so forth. Luo Nan only had a smattering of understanding of many of these things. Perhaps he knew but didn't know why. But no matter what thoughts and questions he threw out, Child was always able to understand and respond. Child used his nearly perfect shield of truth state to give the most direct demonstration. Similarly, the situation Child described was always able to evoke Luo Nan's inspiration and resonance. He stood on the theoretical basis of formatting theory and combined it with his own practice, as well as Raven and Jack's exquisite and intuitive demonstration that night. In terms of soul configuration, blending of form and soul breathing, he was always able to come up with something that made Child's eyes light up. During this process, Luo Nan's originally somewhat muddled train of thought gradually cleared up. This was especially true in the domain of the interaction and interference of the mental and material planes. Some specious things were swept clean. Luo Nan's mind was unprecedentedly clear. In comparison, the physical stress was nothing. However, as the two of them cleared up their train of thought, the conflict that had never been seen before also appeared. The main source of the conflict was Child. This Ears of Truth saw the wonders of the format of My Heart's a Prison, and even soul breathing, and praised the order at the mental level that it brought. But what he hoped to do wasn't just to see clearly. If Child's structure of form and soul could be viewed as an atomic furnace, then this powerful structural system was mainly established on the material plane as a foundation. Its main area of effect was also on the material plane. What manifested was his powerful body and defensive abilities that transcended the mortal plane. This structural system was powerful and highly orderly, but it was also relatively closed off. The soul and flesh interacted with each other, each occupying their own position. No matter which side it was not easy to leave the circle. Because of this, Child's development on the mental plane was limited while he obtained powerful physical strength. The storm he formed on the mental plane was nothing more than a reuse of the overflowing heat of the atomic furnace. Luo Nan couldn't be compared to Child, but he could use Raven to make a comparison. Raven's blending of form and soul pursued the seamless transition of multiple planes. She could rapidly jump between different frequencies of the mental and material plane. She possessed inconceivable adaptability, flexibility, and explosive power. Child, on the other hand, was fixed on one level and one frequency. He took this structure to the extreme and slowly expanded its range of influence. Luo Nan couldn't say the pros and cons of these two models. He could only say that if Child had been in Raven's position last Sunday night, then the charged particle cannon on the artificial lake in the park might not have been effective. But if time was pushed back and Child fell into a state of unconsciousness due to the brain pulse, it would be very difficult for him to wake up on his own. He could only be trampled upon. Of course, it was better to directly burn Child's head than to form a pulse that could knock him unconscious. From the perspective of Luo Nan's understanding, Child was already sufficiently powerful. His atomic furnace was the structural system formed from the shield of truth of the Order of Justice's secret cultivation technique. Its firmness and solidity had already surpassed the imaginations of humans. But from Child's point of view, this wasn't perfect. The purpose of cultivation is to explore the truth. We need to observe this world from a more holistic perspective. We need to discover the profound mysteries hidden deep within the world. We need to clarify the order of the world. Nothing is more important than observation. Observation is the most crucial ability for humans to understand and order the world. Currently, at the level that I can reach, my exploration is about to come to an end, but my observation ability is limited by the current structure system. Whether it is in terms of depth or breadth, it is difficult for me to make any progress. This is absolutely unacceptable. Then do you know that there are people drooling over your steel body? Luo Nan understood Child's pursuit, but he didn't believe that Child's direction was correct. Your observation is limited because of your own structural system. I call it the self-format, a high level of order. It affects and disturbs the external environment at all times. Your self-format absorbs negative entropy, and the external heaven and earth format increases entropy, producing waste heat. Then it's normal for there to be no order and no rhythm. You can use it, but it doesn't mean that you can break free from this format and start anew. It just means that you are expanding the range of control of the self-format. You are constantly distorting the heaven and earth format for your own use. You are influencing the material plane to the mental plane. And I am the exact opposite. Looking at it from this perspective, Cat Eye's judgment of Child being an all-rounder was wrong. Child's foundation was still on the material plane. He was a fleshly body strengthening from head to toe. It was just that he was so powerful to the extreme that he formed an astonishing interference power on the mental plane. Luo Nan thought again. He grasped soul breathing. After his soul strength increased dramatically, he used his mental power to interfere with the material plane. He formed halos, phantoms, and other anomalies. Those should be the embodiment of waste heat. To read the latest novel without error, please visit Chapter 202. There's a chapter up ahead. Don't miss it, everyone. Theory and practice mutually verified each other. The more Luo Nan spoke, the more he felt his mind clear and unobstructed. He didn't care whether it was right or wrong. He expressed his thoughts and thoughts directly in his mind. Through words and demonstrations on the mental plane, everything was displayed. The mental self-format only needs to focus on whether the operating structure of energy and information is reasonable or not, whether it is efficient or not. It can be modified and changed at any time. However, restoring it to the fleshly body is extremely difficult. It's like the inspiration of a designer. They can produce beautiful renderings, but there is always a distance from practical application. The material-oriented self-format must take care of the internal organs, blood, nerves, muscles, bones, and other aspects. It even includes the precise cells and biological macromolecules. This is like the work of an architect. He must fully consider the practicality of every material and every structure. This was not Luo Nan speaking carelessly. Instead, it was the subtlety that was reflected in Fairchild's previous demonstration. Even though only the tip of the iceberg was revealed, it made Luo Nan gasp in amazement. Observation is the vocation of mentally enhanced people. They use observation to understand the operating principles of all things in the world. They use observation to experiment and predict a more precise and efficient operating structure of energy and information. Oh, you can call it configuration. It forms a perfect prerequisite. Luo Nan felt more and more that the word configuration that Jack spoke of was really concise and wonderful. He could not help but use it again. As for the fleshly body enhanced people, they should pay attention to the actual restoration of the configuration. They should embody the control and transformation ability of the material plane. You are using the material aspect to do work on the mental aspect. Of course, it will be very difficult to succeed. This goes against the laws of the material nature. Fairchild allowed Luo Nan to talk and demonstrate without end. Though there were many commonplace things within, and he had heard them so many times that he had grown calloused from day to day, Fairchild listened quietly from beginning to end. This was because he knew that Luo Nan wasn't trying to teach or demonstrate anything. Instead, Luo Nan was sorting out his self-knowledge once more. Only when Luo Nan clarified the division between the mental and the material aspects did Fairchild speak briefly. Why can't it be done at the same time? Done at the same time? Luo Nan suddenly choked. He was a bit stupefied. Yeah, why can't it be done at the same time? It's clearly possible. Fairchild had just proposed an idea, but Luo Nan had a living example. Roe 1, that little girl who was still in a coma, yet her slender body hid an inconceivable ability. She used a few short minutes of murderous attacks to give Luo Nan the most brilliant demonstration. Luo Nan once believed that Roe 1 and Child's two models each had their own merits. But now he suddenly discovered that Roe 1's configuration of body and soul was actually the most exquisite model that displayed the effects of balance on the mental and material planes. From Luo Nan's current level of understanding, it was nearly perfect. It's really enough. While Luo Nan was in a daze, Cat Eyes had reached the end of her patience. Right now, the society's encrypted channel had completely collapsed. Metal Box had directly withdrawn from the operation. Red Fox and Papercut were also wavering. He Yueyin had allowed the situation to develop. It was a far cry from her previous strong style. Cat Eyes was the one waiting to be rescued in a dangerous situation. Naturally, she did not feel good about it. Luo Nan, this bastard, was still engaging in conversation that was sometimes unfathomable and sometimes cliched. Fairchild could endure it, but she couldn't. Cat Eyes simply slapped Luo Nan on the back. It's like a boiling pot outside. Huh. As the slap landed, Luo Nan's body fell forward. Fortunately, Cat Eyes reacted quickly. She grabbed his shoulder, preventing him from falling to Fairchild's feet. It must be known that Cat Eyes was sharing her perspective. As long as Luo Nan's situation was within the encrypted channel, there was nothing she could not see. He Yuein's cold voice cut in, "What's going on?" Zhang Yingying exclaimed in surprise, "Heart Destroyer Palm." Cat Eyes was flabbergasted. Only the heavens knew what was going on. Luo Nan, this kid, had a serious imbalance between his soul and fleshly body, but he shouldn't be weak to this degree. Compared to Cat Eyes' blank reaction, Fairchild was not the least bit surprised. He just took advantage of the situation and raised his gaze to point at an empty area above. There, Luo Nan reacted awkwardly. Due to the demonstration of forgetting himself on the mental plane, he had unknowingly pulled apart the distance between his soul and fleshly body. He had accidentally left his body. Fortunately, he had penetrated deeper on the mental plane. Fairchild, who had been communicating with him all this time, was able to lock onto Luo Nan's position. If he did not leave his body once, it would be hard for his fleshly body to avoid suffering. Luo Nan sighed to himself and was about to go back when Fairchild's telepathic thoughts cut in at this time. He continued with the previous topic. Balancing isn't a compromise. It's a pure correction. Have you ever tasted that feeling? It's like sleeping peacefully within the membrane of a fetus. It's like melting within the radiance of truth. Every breath connects the inner and outer worlds. It's truly exhaling the old and taking in the new. Fairchild's description was a bit abstract and chaotic, but his sincere feelings melded into the storm on the mental plane, giving Luo Nan a vague experience. We can try it out. You help me first. Anyone else would have been confused by Fairchild's description, but Luo Nan understood it without any difficulty. His mind was suddenly filled with intense curiosity. He forgot about the matter of his soul returning to his body. The heavily chained crow trembled in the next moment and collided with Fairchild's mental storm. Luo Nan's heavily chained crow maintained a defensive stance even during the long standoff and exchange. But this time, under the intentional control of both sides, the offensive and defensive momentum reversed. The heavily chained crow suppressed the mental storm for the first time, invading Fairchild's outer control circle. The power of the format of "My Heart's a Prison" instantly took effect, sending the format's own order into the depths of this layer of waste heat. This could be considered a kind of blessing, just like it did for Roy 1 and Inc. In this instant, Luo Nan's consciousness cut into the range of Fairchild's mental senses for a brief moment. He brought an area with a radius of 300 meters into his clairvoyance. The cross-section of this vast space was nearly 300,000 square meters. It covered the entire Frost River reality. The high-speed flow of energy and information converged with a rumble. Through a special configuration, the information was sorted out and analyzed. The layers were arranged in a clear and detailed manner. Fairchild narrowed his eyes and quietly experienced this marvelous experience. The profoundness was by no means a simple, all-encompassing perception. Observation brought order, and order was truth. At the same time, observation brought pressure. Because Luo Nan had received Fairchild's mental senses and the corresponding information, it was like he had received an enormous chain hammer that spun at high speeds. His entire soul trembled violently. After all, although Fairchild's sensing range was inferior to Luo Nan's, Fairchild's level of understanding and depth far exceeded Luo Nan's level. This was rich nourishment, but it was also a difficult problem that transcended the class. If Luo Nan had not been in an out-of-body state, this attack would have caused Luo Nan to vomit blood and collapse. And right now, even though Luo Nan was in an out-of-body state, he could still sense that his soul strength had been stimulated. It had clearly grown again and could not be suppressed. How am I supposed to go back now? Luo Nan's bitter smile had just returned when Fairchild suddenly took a step forward. Fairchild's snow-white robes fluttered, and he raised his fist that had been hidden deep within his robes. The fist struck straight out and smashed into the chest of Luo Nan's unconscious body. A mercury-like radiance surged back and forth between the fist and the chest. For the fastest and error-free novel reading, please visit Chapter 203. The instant Fairchild punched, Cat Eyes was like a big cat with its fur standing on end. Her entire body bounced up. Her hand was resting on Luo Nan's shoulder. The powerful shock transmitted from Luo Nan's body made her feel as if she had been electrocuted. Her hand was first bounced off, and then her entire body received the impact. However, this was not the most crucial factor in her intense reaction. At this moment, regardless of whether it was the encrypted channel or her own senses, all of them sent a sharp warning over. The problem was that the warning and stimulation were triggered from multiple points. They came from different directions, different intensities, and different distances. Together, they formed a giant web of danger that made one's scalp explode. It endlessly tested her ability to make decisions on the spot. However, Fairchild's punch had swept away at least 90% of the irritating choices. The only path was laid out before her eyes. Luo Nan's unconscious body bounced up faster than Cat Eye's. His body left the ground and slammed heavily into the wall behind him. He crashed into it with a boom. The mercury-like radiance on his chest rapidly permeated the moment of impact. It illuminated Luo Nan's entire body, and then it disappeared without a trace. Luo Nan's body went limp, and he sat against the wall. Cat Eyes leaped back and arrived by Luo Nan's side. However, she did not pick him up. Instead, she pressed down on his neck and pushed him down. She laid down beside him. The instant she completed this action, the soundproof walls on both sides of the room exploded with two bangs. A gap the size of half an adult's body was blasted open at practically the same time. Soundproof cotton, gypsum board, and other composite building materials flew into the air, forming a hazy, turbid mist of dust that covered most of the room. But very quickly, the dark red trajectory of the bullet cut the dust into pieces, and the special bullets bombarded the ground and the walls one after another, exploding one after another. The fragmented smoke screen and the strong sound of the electric current interweaved together, and in an instant, the interior of the VIP room was swept into ruins. It was easy to imagine that if Luo Nan was still in his previous position, he would have been turned into a sieve in the blink of an eye. The other person in the high-risk area was Officer Shuaweluan. He had been hit by Fairchild's mental storm and was sitting on the ground in a daze. He was doing his best to recover. Now, the rain of bullets descended and shrapnel flew everywhere, covering him within. Fortunately, Shuaweluan was wearing the exoskeleton armor. Although he was swept by the wave of attacks, he did not suffer any fatal injuries. Instead, he completely woke up from the stupor of the spiritual shock. Relying on his instincts, he made a few tactical movements in a row and quickly hid in a corner, finally avoiding the frontal attack. The other people in the room were not so lucky. The two police officers who had been pulling Luo Nan and Cat Eyes had been passers-by and background for a long time. But they instantly collapsed in this wave of attacks. It was unknown whether they were dead or alive. Guoju, who was unconscious, was probably the unluckiest one in the first wave of attacks. He was hit directly in the back by a large-caliber sniper bullet. His upper body exploded on the spot, and blood and flesh splattered everywhere. He could not be more dead. The pungent smell of blood and the rapidly surging hostility and killing intent were like an invisible burning flame that invaded Cat Eye's perception. She was forced to constantly change her perception in order to eliminate the interference and capture valuable information. However, the problem was that the other party knew very well that in the face of Fairchild's shield of truth's absolute strength and unparalleled defense, long-range firepower could only be used despite its ineffectiveness. No one would come within 100 meters of it. This made it impossible for her long-range sensing ability to display its full potential. Instead, the target of this concentrated firepower, the ears of truth, Fairchild, simply withdrew his fist after blasting Luo Nan away. He did not make any special moves, but the radiance around his body was as lustrous as mercury. Thickness could be seen amidst the flowing light. No matter what kind of bullet it was, it lost its kinetic energy before this layer of inconceivable light. The powerful sound and electricity were also blocked outside. This marvelous scene of completely defying the laws of matter caused a chill to seep through the gaps of Cat Eyes' teeth. She felt that it was inconceivable. It was precisely because of Fairchild's dazzling performance that he attracted the majority of the firepower. Cat Eyes and Officer Shua were able to catch their breaths. Wretched cries, weeping, and groans could be heard endlessly from outside. Even though the majority of the players had left this troublesome place due to the series of unforeseen events, there were still some people who were either enchanted or watching. They did not evacuate in time. The two firing points of the Knights of Equity opened up, and the two bullet trajectories on both sides of the room became a human domain. Compared to the chaotic and miserable situation outside, the luxurious room was already in shambles. From beginning to end, aside from the initial 170 decibels explosion of the stun grenade, no one else made a sound. Some people did not make it in time. Some people knew that this was completely meaningless. There were also people like Cat Eyes. After taking 2 deep breaths, she poured all of her emotions into the encrypted passageway. You guys just let the Order of Justice calmly set up 2 firing points like this? Bamboo Pole expressed his helplessness. We didn't even know if they were going to make a move before. What were we supposed to do? Plus, who would have thought that the Order of Justice would dare to play this big? This internal strife is simply the tempo of a special warfare. He sighed and continued to report the current situation. Right now, they are still filling in people endlessly. Aside from the interior of Frost River reality, there are also quite a few people who have gone to the top floors of the 3 surrounding buildings. All monitoring over there has been blocked. I don't know what they're up to. I just applied to the Society for the use of satellites or monitoring balloons in the atmosphere, but I'm afraid this won't be enough. Red Fox, who was wavering, had always been by Bamboo Pole's side. Right now, he complimented and grumbled, there are also people from the Order of Justice stationed here. We don't know when they'll come to the central control room to fight for territory. Motherf ** Kerr, is this really okay? Where are the negotiators from the society? Yuan gave a simple response. The 3 first oblatums of the Order of Justice in Xia City have cut off communications. We can't contact them. Zhang Yingying clicked her tongue. I remember that they are all on the secular side. Just nice. 3 buildings, 1 per floor. Suddenly, a strange silence appeared in the encrypted channel. A full 2 seconds passed before Zhang Yingying whistled. The people of the secret order really are all lunatics. Now we don't have to pick a side, right? Yuan skipped over this topic. Confirm Mr. Luo's status. He's not dead yet. Cat Eyes responded snappily. She turned her head to sweep a few glances at Luo Nan's face. She added, his eyelids are trembling. If he's not pretending to be asleep, then he's carrying out shallow consciousness activities. Perhaps he's trying to comprehend the iron fist of love? Damn it. Don't make me guess. Cat Eye's answer represented the opinions of practically everyone in the encrypted channel. Although they were all surprised by Fairchild's fist, no one expressed any concern for Luo Nan's safety. This was probably the power of a lunatic and a fanatic. Common sense could not be used to judge this type of communication. One could not make wild speculations, lest one be infected. At this time, Cat Eyes' eyebrows jumped. She keenly sensed the changes in the outside world. The attack has stopped. Did you guys make a move? We didn't. Zhang Yingying expressed her innocence. Chapter 204. That kid's surname seems to be Shui. He might be a disciple of some martial arts master. He's very courageous. Zhang Yingying had a deep impression of the young man who made up for her mistake. Bamboo Pole expressed his agreement, but he quickly added, but he was too rash. He doesn't have much combat experience, and now he can't even lift his head against firearms. Yingying, go provide support. Yuan directly ordered. Zhang Yingying shrugged. Sorry, I'm not that familiar with you. Yuan acted as if she didn't hear this and continued to give orders. After destroying the firepower point, advance counterclockwise and eliminate all enemy personnel with firearms. Don't pay attention to pure ability users. Bamboo Pole will cooperate with you. Hey! Yuan didn't pay any more attention to her. She continued to issue orders one after the other. Bamboo Pole, first set up a special communication line for White Salt. Then, identify all the firearms personnel and try to save the video. Bamboo Pole understood Yuan's meaning. That's a good idea. The municipal government and the military have just issued a warning to all parties regarding long-range weapons and highly lethal weapons. We're all enthusiastic citizens now, aren't we? Done. As he spoke, he connected to Bai Xinyan. Her wristband vibrated slightly, and a large amount of information flooded in. Bai Xinyan smiled and lowered her head to carefully comb through the information. At the same time, she raised her hand and waved at Zhang Yingying. Zhang Yingying, who had a stomach full of indignation, could only look up to the sky and roll her eyes. She turned around and snuck towards the location that the bamboo pole had pointed out. He Yuan's tone became a bit more polite. "White Salt, you are responsible for bringing your patient out, is that all right?" Bai Xinyan replied with a smile, "Saving lives and helping the injured is a doctor's duty. But are you sure Mr. Child will like our involvement?" He Yuan's voice became cold again. "This has nothing to do with him." After a short pause, she said to the bamboo pole, "Help me connect a line." Following the muted firing of 2 long-range firepower points, many of the Knights of Equity's follow-up steps were forcibly cut off. After all, it was not an easy task to find a suitable location in the complex internal environment of the amusement park. For a short period of time, the luxurious private room that was in a mess was surprisingly quiet. Of the 4 survivors, Xue Weiluan was probably the one who didn't understand the situation the most. However, he was very conscientious and responsible. If this chapter is not finished, please turn the page. Now the police officers also have the most concerns. His gaze swept past the other 3 people in the room, and then turned to the unconscious subordinates outside the door. The wave of intensive attacks just now was mainly aimed at the SWAT officers indoors. The SWAT officers outside were protected by the exoskeleton armor, and their vital signs were still stable at this time. This was also displayed in his command data link. Xue Weiluan should have rejoiced, but when he saw Guoju's shattered limbs and the 2 other policemen gasping for breath, he couldn't help but feel conflicted. Finally, his gaze fell on the white-robed man who had been standing quietly in the middle of the room. It was this man who had brought about a series of disasters, yet he treated them as if they were nothing. To him, the concentrated shrapnel seemed to be just a drizzle in an autumn night. It did not wet him even when it touched him. This kind of monster should not appear in the world of ordinary people. The enormous pressure that followed closely with it would follow the slope created by the higher and lower levels and crush the weak and confused people like a torrent, causing terrible damage. Xue Weiluan sighed with emotion, which was rare for him. At this moment, a buzzing noise came from the communicator. A somewhat hesitant voice said, "You can talk like this? The police data link isn't that easy to hack into, right?" Even though the distance was a little far and the voice was too faint, how could Xue Weiluan not hear it? His heart tightened. "Leicester. Is that you?" Dad, are you really okay?" "I'm with Nanster's friend now. Everything is fine." On the other side, Xue tried his best to make his voice sound more relaxed. The problem was that no one knew a son better than his father. Xue Weiluan could tell from his son's slight breathing that something was wrong. What's more, the dog's tail, reporting that I'm safe, was a clear loophole right in front of him. Xue Weiluan's mind spun and his hair stood up in anger. "You're here? Just based on your mediocre skills? I shouldn't have sent you to the dojo in the first place. Do you know what kind of place this is?" In a moment of desperation, Xue Weiluan couldn't care less about anything else. His roar rushed out of his visor and echoed in the ruined private room. Despite being separated by several hundred meters, Xue was still harshly lectured by his father. Xue could only shrink back for a time. Zhang Yingying giggled happily to the side. No matter who was unlucky, she was always able to find some fun. "Xue, did you hear that? Get the hell out of here right now, Xue, this chapter is not finished. Please turn the page." Xue Luan's roar swept through the damaged room with air leaking in all directions. There wasn't even a single echo. But Luo Nan, who was pressed to the ground by cat eyes, opened his eyes after his eyelids trembled twice. "Oh, Leicester came in? You're awake?" Cat Eyes was a bit surprised. "I thought you were going to pretend to be unconscious until things were over." Pretending to be unconscious was naturally an insult. Luo Nan just laughed at this. But he soon discovered that he was lying shoulder to shoulder with Cat Eyes. They were too close to each other. The two could even hear each other's breaths. It was a bit awkward. Luo Nan flipped over and sat up. This single movement caused the bones and muscles of his entire body to emit fine sounds. His body froze, but he soon relaxed. He twisted his neck and the expression on his face was rather subtle. Cat Eyes was still lying on the ground. She said with a frown, "Hey, aren't you afraid of getting shot in the head? Didn't they all get cleaned up? The remaining long-range firepower points are all retreating outside." Cat Eyes felt that the two's current posture was far too awkward. She saw that Luo Nan spoke with certainty and thought for a moment. She simply sprung up and glared at him with cold eyes. "How do you know?" "I'm fine." Luo Nan responded slowly. His gaze never left Xue Weiluan, who was on the other side. Xue Weiluan was already hopping mad. This Uncle Xue was such a calm and resolute person. He would act the same way when his own child was in trouble. This sort of interaction was indeed very interesting. "You're really free." Cat Eyes' brows furrowed even tighter. Luo Nan gave off a slightly different feeling after waking up. It was as if his crazy attribute had been strengthened once more. He could sink into a zone of thought that others could not understand at any time and place. The problem was that even if he was crazy, others might not be a fanatic. As soon as Cat Eyes had this thought, the fanatic, yes, Fairchild, who had been standing quietly all this time, moved. He turned his body and took 2 steps, immediately attracting everyone's gazes. Even Xue Weiluan temporarily stopped reprimanding his own son to pay close attention. Blocking in front of Fairchild were the 3 multifunctional robots that Fairchild had kicked to a halt not too long ago. Right now, they had already been baptized by the special bullets in front of them. They were completely scrapped. Even the system's self-checks had been suspended. Today is still 2 updates. The holidays are finally here. I won't say anything to avoid ruining my character. See you all tomorrow. Chapter 205. Fairchild stood in front of the 3 piles of scrap metal. Wherever his gaze passed, the somewhat distorted metal structure seemed to have been cut by an invisible blade. One by one, they disintegrated. The 3 piles of scrap metal collapsed, revealing the figure of a person. It was Huang Bingjin. This brother had been unconscious to begin with. He was pressed down by a stretcher and there were a few robots blocking his way. He had completely lost his sense of existence. Surprisingly, he had not died under the rain of bullets just now. He had only been injured by the shrapnel. Now he woke up from the pain and began to moan for help. Fairchild extended his hand. Of course, this had nothing to do with Huang Bingjin. In the next moment, a palm-sized metal box silently bounced up from the pile of metal parts and fell into his hand. Is this the storage of the human-faced arachnid? Cat Eyes swept her gaze over the metal box. It was hard for her to match it with the image of the human-faced arachnid. When that damned Guo had confessed, he had explained the cause and effect of the matter in great detail. With Cat Eyes' long-range perception, she naturally would not have missed it. Inside the metal box was the core object that had triggered this incident. It was the raw materials for the creation of the human-faced arachnid and the corresponding key information. As long as she had this metal box and used a special method to restore it, a human-faced arachnid could jump out at any moment. Even though it was just a model, it could be said to be a fake. It possessed extraordinary power and functions. The reason why the previous performance had been like a farce was mainly because the driver, Huang Bingjin, who was moaning and wailing on the ground, was far too clumsy. Fairchild quietly sized up the metal box. He was extremely serious and focused. Because of this, everyone present unconsciously held their breaths and focused their minds. They were afraid that they would alarm this person and cause some sort of trouble. It was at this moment that a voice suddenly rang out, "Fairchild, do you not feel even the slightest bit of regret when faced with this masterpiece?" Everyone else in the room was fiercely shocked. Cat Eyes felt a chill run down her back. The voice had come too strangely. It had appeared out of nowhere in this messy room. It was weak and sharp, like the hissing of a snake when it flicked its tongue. She had not sensed such a special voice at all. It had clearly rung in her ears, but she could not grasp any clues. The so-called long-range perception had become a mere decoration. In the encrypted channel, this chapter has yet to end. Please continue. Yuen uploaded a message. Secret bound first ablatum, words of Krite. At this moment, anyone in the channel who had some understanding of the Order of Justice's organizational structure was trembling in fear. The Order of Justice was a world-class secret order. Moreover, they regarded fair exchange as their core doctrine. When it came to oaths, they placed unimaginable importance on them. This was especially true for the secular side. Many of their core secrets and profundities were maintained by strict and cruel oaths. From the lowest to the highest, the overt oath, the secret pact, and the heart illumination were the witnesses, executors, and punishers of the oaths. They were also the axis of power in the entire church's system. Although the secret-bound first ablatum was only in the middle of the first ablatum rank, within the Order of Justice, the status of a priest was one level higher than that of the other members of the Order of Justice. Even a worldwide secret order like the Order of Justice only had a little over 100 members. On average, each large metropolitan area would only have 1 or 2 members. Therefore, every single one of them had the power to oversee an area. They had the power to take charge of an area by themselves. In terms of political status, the society needed to bring out the leader of the Xia City branch, Ouyangchen. Only then would they be equal. But upon careful thought, it was not strange. This sudden chaos was a contest of power between the upper echelons of the Order of Justice. Fairchild, the Ears of Truth, was an illustrious powerhouse even on the world level. He was infinitely close to the domain of extraordinary. From the looks of it, the extravagance of Frost River reality really did not amount to much. It was just that the innocent citizens lying in pools of blood and the insignificant ability users like them had to suffer. Damn it. That's enough. Red Fox could not help but complain in the encrypted channel. This is no longer a problem of a city gate catching fire. This is simply a fight between gods. Normally, they can't even hide, but they actually ran into us with their eyes wide open. For the time being, no one replied to him because Fairchild responded, no matter how exquisite a work is, it is nothing more than a toy to satisfy the selfish desires of a blasphemer. I don't see how it has the qualifications to be called a masterpiece. The secret-bound first ablatum used the secret technique of words of Krite and laughed in a low voice. As for where he was, no one knew. Oh, Fairchild, I must. This chapter is not finished. Please turn the page. Let me remind you this time. Your logic can be perfectly replaced by the scales of truth. Are you saying that the sacred object that can bear the weight of the Order's sacrificial vessel is nothing more than a big toy to satisfy the desires of the believers? Fairchild's expression did not change. This was not the first time such a debate had occurred. He knew very well that using words to refute An Wang was meaningless. An Wang, you only need to understand one thing. This thing will not return to your hands. Your laughable, divine replacement will ultimately become a meaningless dream. So you choose to cooperate with the Ability User Society? Fairchild did not react to An Wang's words, but all the members of the society who shared Cat Eyes felt their hearts tremble. These words were tantamount to the most serious accusation. A single misstep would be the beginning of a conflict between the two world organizations, the Order of Justice and the Ability User Society. Fairchild was too lazy to defend himself. I only eliminate those who blaspheme against the truth. The entire room trembled slightly as soon as he finished speaking. The mercury-like radiance around Fairchild's body rippled and tore apart all channels of information flow. The words of Krite was also blocked outside. Fairchild immediately dropped his arm. The snow-white sleeve of his robe covered the metal box. No one knew what he would do next. However, the encrypted channel was in an uproar because of this series of words. Red Fox was the most excited. He let out a blood-curdling scream. We've really been tricked this time. Fairchild is pushing the boat with the current. He's using it too ruthlessly. Eliminate your sister. Cooperation your sister. Can't you just make things clear? Zhang Yingying had entered the channel a little late and she had not looked at the historical information in detail. She was completely confused and had the mentality of watching a good show. That metal box is really crucial. I'm afraid there will be a bloodbath over it. The human-faced arachnid is hidden in this box. That Guoju came specifically to retrieve it. But I heard him say something about downloading it. Bamboo Pole, a technician, was more concerned about technical issues. He asked Cat Eyes, what did that Guoju say earlier? Cat Eyes shared her perspective with her companion. She happened to be in the middle of Fairchild and Guoju's conversation. Most people in the encrypted channel did not receive the complete message. It was inevitable that they were confused at this time. Chapter 206. Cat Eyes felt a headache coming on. This involved some complicated theories and Guoju himself was muddle-headed. Naturally, some parts of his explanation were very vague. There were many parts that she did not understand. She could only speak in a simple manner. I heard that this is the most successful experiment of the secular side's human-faced arachnid. If they continue to research it, their final goal will be to mass-produce it? Am I right? Hey, I'm asking you a question. Cat Eyes jabbed Luo Nan. Luo Nan was a bit surprised. You're asking me? Who else would I ask? This is a serious matter that Fairchild needs to handle. You chatted so happily with him. Did you ask him clearly? There's no value in discussing this. Luo Nan shook his head honestly. His conversation with Fairchild mainly concerned the mutual interference between the mental and material planes. As for the human-faced arachnid exoskeleton armor, it was a simple structure on the mental plane. It was also a simplified version. It could not even be considered a soul configuration. How could there be any discussion? Cat Eyes could not help but roll her eyes. It turned out that this person had not come out of his mental state. Red Fox, who had been highly nervous and had long since been resentful, could not help but let out dozens of clicking sounds in the encrypted channel. In the end, he chuckled coldly. Mr. Luo, young Master Luo, are you saying that our group of people took the risk of falling out with the Order of Justice and came here to support you just for this thing that has no value in discussing? Great. You really are great. Then we won't serve you anymore, okay? Red Fox swung his hand and walked away. Bamboo Pole saw that the situation was not right. He grabbed Red Fox and said, "Hold on. Don't be angry." Luo Nan didn't make it clear. The topic of discussion between him and Fairchild is a bit more abstract. It might not be related to this matter. So you know about abstract? That's why we accompanied him here and there. I've said it before. The goal of today's operation was unclear from the beginning. The responsibility was unclear. We rushed over here based on the guidance of a mental patient. We didn't see the human-faced arachnid, but we bumped into the infighting of the Order of Justice. In the end, the main character didn't even make a move. We shamelessly went up and spent a lot of effort to clean up the mess. Hehe, the henchman of the Order of Justice, the vanguard of the conflict. Does this name sound good? Red Fox was furious. If he had not been involved in this matter, he would have treated Luo Nan and Fairchild's exchange as a joke and laughed it off. But now, he and Bamboo Pole were in Yulan Hotel's central control room. They had already been exposed. If this chapter is not finished, please turn the page. The Knights of Peace would come over sooner or later. Conflict was inevitable. It would have been fine if Luo Nan had been able to clearly sort out the cause and effect of the matter at this time. He would have apologized and added thanks. But in the end, Luo Nan just said, "There's no value in discussing." Just how ignorant was this brat? Furthermore, he had a deeper worry. Up until now, the society still hasn't given a clear explanation. The experts haven't arrived yet, and there's no sign of any coordination. If we really discuss this matter with the order of justice in the future, what would we amount to? The first wave of cannon fodder? Or are you using him as a scapegoat? Bamboo Pole continued to advise him, you worry too much. President Ouyang isn't that kind of person, that's because you haven't seen what the headquarters is like. Or perhaps, do you think that this sort of thing can be controlled within the boundaries of Xia City? Brothers and sisters, do you still not understand? This matter has already gotten out of hand. These secret orders are the best at dealing with matters of faith. They make a mountain out of a molehill. Headquarters, on the other hand, is politically correct from start to finish. Right now, we don't even have a single piece of evidence. Don't tell me that we have to send over the call records to prove our own innocence. He Yuan tried to advise him, Red Fox, I'm talking to Boss Luo. Secretary, shut up. Red Fox grew angrier the more he thought about it. He didn't give face to anyone. He scolded anyone who dared to speak. The encrypted channel became extremely awkward when these words were spoken. Red Fox made it clear that he only wanted Luo Nan's attitude. Anyone else who spoke would only add fuel to the fire. Luo Nan was distracted for a few moments before he discovered that he was being targeted by Red Fox. He wasn't really ignorant. He just didn't think too much about it. He just spoke his mind. The faith product he named the human-faced arachnid exoskeleton armor was essentially a simplified version of the soul configuration. With the live demonstration from before and the wraith sign as a solid reference, Luo Nan just needed to gather enough negative emotions to create one on the spot. It wasn't a difficult matter. This wasn't Fairchild's area of expertise. Fairchild probably didn't know this better than Luo Nan. Luo Nan felt quite wronged for a time. But when he thought about it from the other side, he had rashly reported the warning of the human-faced arachnid. He didn't listen to He Yuan's instructions and headed straight for the site of the incident, causing the situation to escalate. He was indeed in the wrong first. Red Fox had faced many changes to the mission target. Though he grumbled endlessly, he still followed them from start to finish. Now he was facing a direct conflict with the order of justice. The danger was extremely high. Please continue to the next page if this chapter is not finished. He really did have the qualifications to get angry. Luo Nan didn't mind apologizing and saying a few soft words. However, he really didn't know how to respond in this complicated context. He looked at Cat Eyes, who was closest to him. Cat Eyes had her arms crossed over her chest. She had a cold and cynical expression that said, seeing you embarrassed makes me feel good. However, the index and middle fingers of her right hand were raised and hooked downwards. Her meaning was for Luo Nan to lower his head and admit his mistake. She had been sharing her perspective all this time. This method was more covert, making it harder for others to discover her. However, this kind of notification was far too vague. At this time, two good friends simultaneously communicated with him in the private interface. One was He Yuan. The other was actually Zhang Yingying. Apologize to Red Fox. Try to communicate with Fairchild. Ask him clearly about the human-faced arachnid. Say a few words to Fairchild. Put on a show. Red Fox is a grumpy person. Give him a way out of this embarrassing situation. The messages from the two were different but the meaning was the same. They were both teaching Luo Nan a way to ease the situation. He Yuan's actions were consistent with her style. However, Zhang Yingying's secret assistance was a bit unexpected to Luo Nan. Luo Nan wanted this kind of specific guidance. He let out a breath of relief and obediently responded in the encrypted channel, I'm sorry, Red Fox. I didn't think things through just now. I'll communicate with Fairchild a bit more. Luo Nan was pondering as he spoke. Though Red Fox had said a bunch of angry words, there were some things that he could understand very clearly. Right now, the biggest problem for the members of the society was that they were unable to separate themselves from the internal strife of the order of justice. They gave others a reason to speak against them, but they did not have any concrete evidence to prove their innocence. Luo Nan thought about it a bit more. Though he already understood the configuration of the human-faced arachnid, it was all empty talk. If the society were to negotiate with the order of justice, the evidence would be lacking. The true and irrefutable evidence was naturally the metal box in Fairchild's hands. Luo Nan more or less understood Fairchild's personality. Fairchild had obtained the storage device, but he would at most verify it. It was more likely that Fairchild would simply destroy it. That would be far too wasteful. With this thought clear, Luo Nan spoke to Fairchild. Mr. Fairchild, if you don't need that storage device, leave it for us to store as evidence. Cat eyes, ? He Yueyin. Zhang Ingying, ! Red fox, F***ck me. What the hell are you doing? Chapter 207. The instant Luo Nan's words left his mouth, Red Fox was not the only one who exploded. Everyone in the encrypted channel was furious. You saw it, you saw it. The Red Fox shouted until the end and was completely exhausted. Even his cries had turned into moans. I knew it. This fellow is purely a scammer. What a fool. Zhang Yingying slapped herself on the face, feeling too ashamed to face anyone. Even if Xue Lei, who was beside her, looked at her as if she was a lunatic, she couldn't care less. How naive was she? Only then would they believe that the youth who was serious about becoming an employee could handle this matter by himself. Bamboo Pole, who had always thought that he possessed the calmness of a technician, couldn't help but say, in the future, it's better to let him use his pen and not his mouth. Truthfully speaking, Luo Nan's words just now really left people speechless. It would be too presumptuous to say that it was a request. After all, Fairchild had just expressed his attitude towards the secret-bound officiant, and Wang. That metal box was an important item that was not up for discussion. Why should he give it to him? A single mistake and they would fall out with each other. It would be absurd to call it a negotiation. Right now, the Order of Justice's secular faction had their eyes on this metal box. Even if they were to start a massacre in the bustling city center, they would not hesitate. With this kind of determination and willpower, anything could be burned to a crisp. Yet, you actually want to take it? What kind of spirit was this? Actually, Luo Nan himself felt a bit odd after he spoke those words. He saw the reaction in the encrypted channel and knew that he had said the wrong thing. But at this time, Fairchild turned his head and locked gazes with Luo Nan. He muttered to himself for a moment before nodding. If you want it. Here. As he spoke, Child had already tossed the metal box in his hand, crisp and efficient. Don't take it. Can you not be so fragile? Look, he's taking advantage of the situation. The encrypted channel was filled with a wave of rejection, but it was impossible for Luo Nan to slap the metal box back. He instinctively extended his hand, and the metal box was placed between his 5 fingers. There was a slight feeling of heat in his hand, like the heat dissipating from a high-speed operating instrument. At this moment, in the encrypted channel, half of the people were wailing, while the other half remained silent. The atmosphere was like the end of the world. It was well done. If this chapter is not finished, please turn the page. Was he stupid? Hopelessly stupid? Luo Nan always had a bit of a temper. It wasn't that he couldn't accept opinions, but he admitted that his level of communication still needed to be improved. But what the hell was this atmosphere, as if the planet was going to explode in the next moment? The metal box had played an important role in the whole process. From the moment Guo Ju confessed, it should have been obvious to everyone. He took a deep breath and sent out a message in the encrypted channel. Isn't this storage unit the ironclad proof that the Order of Justice is researching and experimenting with the human-faced arachnid? Yo-ho! Does young Master Luo feel wronged? The Red Fox sneered, solid evidence? Based on the external parts of a robot? Based on the one-sided statement of a dead man? Or was it based on the obscure communication between Child and the secret covenant officiant? Young Master Luo, let me teach you something. The words of Krite is a secret covenant technique of the Order of Justice. No equipment can record it. Luo Nan was baffled. He continued to speak in the encrypted channel. The society intervened so early. All sorts of monitoring, perspective sharing, and video archiving have been done extremely well. The entire plot chain is clear and complete. It is far too easy to fake in this world. Your ability user society intervened so early. You guys must have made arrangements long ago, right? Red Fox mimicked the words of the Order of Justice, directly making Luo Nan choke. Luo Nan felt that he was unable to speak, but he was unwilling to admit defeat. He ground his teeth and used his mind as the tip of a pen to draw a simplified 2D structure diagram in the encrypted channel. Although it was simplified, the crisscrossing lines and the precise layout of the graphics stitched together made the encrypted channel go silent. Red Fox was a bit stupefied. What do you mean by this? Are you trying to curse me? Luo Nan hastily drew the diagram and used the marking function of the psychic wave network. He used an eye-catching red pen to draw over a dozen red circles on the 2D structure diagram in a single breath. This is the energy and information storage structure used by the storage unit. It includes the simplified restoration technique. Many of the details involved are special patterns that appear over and over again. Are these the exclusive uses of the Order of Justice? Actually, many of these structures appeared in the configuration of Child's Shield of Truth. They were used as extremely crucial nodes, which was why Luo Nan dared to be so certain. The internal core structure of the storage unit is unique. If this chapter is not finished, please flip the page. Special craftsmanship and usage. Tracing back from this clue and combining all sorts of information and evidence, wouldn't we be able to seize the initiative and solve an ironclad case? Red Cat was defeated by this technological geek's way of thinking. He didn't know how to respond for a time. Bamboo Pole, who was next to him, was watching with rapt attention. He muttered, I don't know if this is the exclusive craftsmanship of the Order of Justice, but from the information I've gathered, there are indeed many similar structural arrangements within the Order of Justice's internal rituals. It's just that they're a bit deformed. Is it used for storage? Bamboo Pole was an outstanding hacker, but he was also an expert in researching secret orders. His words naturally held a lot of credibility. The group's attention was more or less scattered due to the matter of the structure diagram. Zhang Yingying asked curiously, is this the internal structure of the metal box? How did the precision of your senses improve so quickly? If this is the internal structure of the storage unit, then it's the result of my mental senses just now. Then, with the volume of the metal box, the precision of my mental senses should be close to the micron level. After entering the encrypted channel, Bai Xinyan, who had been silent all this time, spoke for the first time. She spoke with a dull tone, Student Luo Nan, the burden on your body is too heavy. Luo Nan remembered that she used to address him as Mr. Luo. Was this a drop in status? He was stunned for a moment before he responded, there's nothing wrong with my body. I just believe that this evidence is sufficient to prove the facts. It can be completely turned into an ironclad case. Red Fox slowed down after being continuously interrupted by these people. He saw that Luo Nan was still stubborn, so he went all out with Luo Nan. Handle a case? What case will you handle? Handle whose case? Who will handle the case? The society handles the case of the Order of Justice. That's not called handling a case. It's called conflict. It's called all-out war. Young Master Luo, no matter how large the ability user association behind you is, it is only a loose organization of members. A single operation would cause quite a few people to run away. As for the Order of Justice in front of you, it is a world-class secret order with millions of pious believers and a handful of extraordinaires. Do you understand the gravity of this? Also, there's a common saying in this world. It's called, 1 yard is another yard. The society can make things difficult for the Order of Justice. They can say that they are raising human-faced arachnids. There's no problem with that. But for the Order of Justice, you can't involve yourself in their internal affairs. This is F*King politics. This is F*King reality. Chapter 208. A string of cynicism and mockery was sent over. While Red Fox was talking incessantly, he made the same mistake as a newbie. He used the hexear as a communication device. He completely forgot about telepathic communication and simply roared. After this wave of roars, Red Fox's mood did not ease. Instead, he became even more agitated. He smashed his fist heavily on the control panel and cursed, "Idiot." Even so, he still felt agitated. He tugged at his red jacket and cursed again, "Scammer." Bamboo Pole shook his head. He did not speak in the encrypted channel. He only spoke in a simple manner and advised, "Don't look at how he calls you mister. He's still a child. Also, Xia City is different from whose city." Red Fox's expression turned even uglier when he heard the words whose city. He swept an icy glance over. The only difference is the distance from headquarters. Back in the day, I ran out of whose city like a dog. Now that I'm in Xia City, I don't want to become a dead dog and be casually thrown into some garbage dump. Bamboo Pole shrugged and did not continue to persuade him. This was because the monitoring system showed that there were a few unfriendly faces heading towards the control room. He sighed and asked in the encrypted channel, "The expected trouble has come. What should we do?" Yuan asked him, "Can you confirm the enemy's weapon right now?" Bamboo Pole understood Yuan's meaning. She was not asking about the people who were about to block the door. She was asking about the arrangements the Order had arranged at Yulon Hotel to deal with Fairchild. Oh, this guy was more stubborn than I imagined. Big guy. The main weapon must be a big guy. Bamboo Pole was multitasking. He repeatedly switched the monitoring screen and confirmed the target that had already begun to be set up. It's very likely to be a sniper cannon. From what I know, many secret orders are researching a magically modified version of the sniper grenade launcher. This toy is much stronger than a charged particle cannon against a single target. Of course, the effect of breaking through the shield of truth is still questionable. Yuan did not say anything more. She simply responded, "Retreat. Head for the preset rendezvous point." Red Fox sneered from the side. He made a "look and I'll know" gesture towards Bamboo Pole. The corner of Bamboo Pole's mouth twitched. "You called them young master when you went against the Order. Now that you retreated, you threw up your hands. In the end, you were still unhappy." In the end, Bamboo Pole did not say anything. He tidied up the equipment in the control room in 5 seconds and walked out with the Red Fox. The central control room was located on a floor close to the top floor, so no accommodation was arranged. If this chapter is not finished, please turn the page. It was empty and quiet. Red Fox also felt that his attitude was somewhat inappropriate. He mumbled, "It's already too late to retreat now. They caught the Order unprepared at Frost River Reality and now they dare to ambush us from all sides. Holy crap." In front of them, the isolation door of the fire escape was pushed open heavily. Nobody could be seen. However, Bamboo Pole and the Red Fox were astute people. They knew at a glance that the intruder did not come with good intentions. They looked at each other, turned around and ran. The fine electric current of the electromagnetic rifle behind him was exceptionally terrifying in the empty floor. "I'm not a fighter." Bamboo Pole cursed loudly. Before the curses left his mouth, he had already pressed a special button on the flexible screen in his hand. The fire alarm on the floor went off and several insulating partitions dropped down. The electromagnetic bullet left the chamber, but it exploded against this layer of transparent partitions. It only pierced through one layer before its trajectory changed. At this time, the side door opened. Bamboo Pole shouted, "This way." He and the Red Fox charged in one after the other. They passed through the room at high speed. They did not stop at all. They passed through the already wide open window and leaped into the night sky at a height of nearly 1,000 meters. After this suicidal action, it was as if the two were riding on flaming wheels. They slid down the glass wall of the hotel at an astonishing speed. Bamboo Pole had some difficulty controlling his balance. He laughed mischievously. No wonder the society's elementary training classes always use rapid descent from a high level as their graduation exam. It really is useful. Red Fox gnashed his teeth. It's true that young Master Luo, the trickster, has finally been given a proper name. The chaotic situation at Yulon Hotel naturally appeared in the encrypted channel. Red Fox, who complained the most, could not be distracted right now. Luo Nan received less than half of the criticism, but his mood did not improve. Words were like knives. They did not cut the skin, but the pit of the heart. Luo Nan was baptized by Red Fox's political and realistic speech. He was speechless. This was not to say that he felt that he was wrong. On the contrary, he felt that the louder Red Fox clamored, the more the resentment in the depths of Red Fox's heart surged. In the end, Red Fox was not targeting Luo Nan at all. It was clearly the political and realistic things that he had always flaunted. Luo Nan was nothing more than a target for ridicule and ridicule. If what Red Fox said was true, then the Order of Justice had used this demon as a reference when the human-faced arachnid was wreaking havoc in Xia City and engaged in sinister research, then the facts were right there. The irrefutable evidence was like a mountain. In the end, the Order of Justice could be easily exempted and even bite back. What did this mean? This chapter is not finished. Please turn the page. As for the veracity of Red Fox's words, let's not talk about the reactions of some people in the encrypted channel. Luo Nan's personal experience with the Blood Flame Order was a very good example. Mo Luan had brought the human-faced arachnid to graze, and made a move against the members of the society. In the end, the matter was left unsettled. Back then, Luo Nan had taken over the human-faced arachnid's nest. He had taken great advantage of it, so Luo Nan did not think too much about it. Now that he thought about it, wasn't it just as Red Fox had said? Politics? Reality? Luo Nan would not find it strange at all if this happened in the secular society. This was because he had a pessimistic view of the hearts of the secular people. But right now, the enormous ability user organization of the inner world, which had largely detached itself from the secular world, was like this as well. Luo Nan still wanted to carry forward his grandfather's formatting theory in the society. If there was no difference between this place and the secular society, how could he guarantee that his grandfather's theory would not suffer the same fate as it did back then? Disappointment. He was extremely disappointed. This was Luo Nan's current state of mind. He did not want to say much. He just flipped the warm metal box in his hand back and forth. If it was possible, he wanted to be quiet for a bit. But how could he have the chance to be quiet right now? As his state of mind flipped along with the metal box, he clearly sensed that there was clearly some sort of extremely obscure power on the mental plane. It was currently creating disturbances in this region. And the feeling was extremely negative. It was like a gloomy layer of clouds that obscured most of the pulsation of life. Luo Nan could feel the malice rippling through the void. This was the true means of the secular side. Luo Nan's hand stopped moving as the dark cloud pressed down. He raised his head slightly and just happened to meet Child's eyes. Those gray pupils looked like layers upon layers of hazy dark clouds at first glance. However, the firm willpower was like sunlight that pierced through the clouds. It was hard to look straight at. Child did not know why Luo Nan was in a daze. His gaze still fell on the metal box that Luo Nan was flipping over and over in his hand. A moment later, he suddenly spoke. We have yet to touch the entirety of truth. We are filled with anticipation toward its true appearance. Because of this, we are exceptionally unable to endure interference, as well as the blasphemy toward our pursuit of goals. The truth has yet to be seen in its entirety. I can only guarantee that the place I stand is the domain of truth. As his voice rose and fell, the light on his body flowed like mercury. It reflected a faint glow on the ground, and a blurry wave of light spread outward. Men are afraid of entering the wrong profession. Chapter 209. The dark clouds on the mental plane covered the entire surrounding area. They constantly disturbed and changed, attempting to attack Child's domain. Later on, due to the continuous changes, the essence of the dark clouds appeared. They transformed into sinister and fleeting whispers of incantations that appeared on the material plane. Words of Krite. Cat Eyes reached out and pulled Luo Nan back. Her expression was grave, as if she was facing a great enemy. The point of fire was blocked, resulting in a momentary disconnection. Then the methods of the secular side finally appeared once more. Moreover, they had already given up on traditional long-range attacks. They directly used extraordinary powers. This was not First Ablatum and Wang's mode of pure communication. The hissing incantations were filled with the power of darkness and cold. The lighting within the room had been mostly wiped out due to the shrapnel of the rain of bullets. When the incantations manifested, the darkness grew deeper. The little bit of light that was left revealed bizarre and dazzling scattered trajectories. It was as if the room had been warped. In comparison, the space that the light of Child's shield of truth could fill was limited. However, the place where he stood still shone with light. It was pure and clear. No matter how the incantations disturbed and changed, not even a little bit of it could seep in. Luo Nan's eyes focused on the pure and clear light. He muttered hoarsely, "The place where I stand is the domain of truth. If you want to believe in religion, you'll have to wait until you return alive." Cat Eyes tugged at Luo Nan again, indicating that he should pay attention to the encrypted channel. He Yueyin had already issued the order to retreat. Luo Nan did not move. It would not be easy for them to leave under the current circumstances. In the next moment, the light coming from the main door was cut off. There were 2 more thumps. Someone was knocking on the door frame. The force was so great that the entire room seemed to tremble twice. However, the person at the door did not seem to have any intention of deliberately exerting force. This person was not wearing any protective armor. He was over 2 meters tall. He stood in front of the door with his head slightly lowered to avoid bumping into the door. He was even bare-chested. His skin was pitch black and glossy. His bulky muscles were connected by tough fascia. They rose and fell with his breathing. He was like a standing black tiger. Just by looking at his physique, he was stronger than the already tall and sturdy Child. The person ignored the gazes of the others in the room. He simply welcomed the light from Child's body and grinned, revealing his snow-white teeth. "Mr. Child, long time no see." "Oh, you might not remember me." "Baze," Child whispered the man's name. "Thank you, Mr. Child, for remembering me." The dark-skinned man named Baze addressed him as Mr. Child. His tone was polite and gentle, which did not match his appearance. "I've always been very grateful to you for teaching me when I first joined the cult. You were the one who taught me the stages of cultivation and the importance of temperance. Unfortunately, I chose another path in the end. I feel that the unrestrained, simple, and violent style suits me better. Moreover, my strength has not left me because of this." Luo Nan watched Baze display the appearance of master and disciple reuniting, but he felt an extremely dangerous tension emerge from the body of this dark-skinned brawny man. He could not help but ask, "Who is he?" "Black Tiger Baze. He's the vice captain of the Knights of Equity's Xia City branch." Cat Eyes extended her hand to support the crooked brim of her hat. She subconsciously made her entire outfit more neat and tidy in preparation for the upcoming bitter battle. Since there was internal strife among the upper echelons of the Order of Justice, the appearance of a fellow like Baze was not strange at all. However, the pressure of theory and the feeling of reality were different in the end. She needed to give Luo Nan, who lacked common sense, a supplementary lesson. At the same time, she gave herself a reminder: he's a freak who can defeat and awaken purely by relying on his innate physical strength. But there are also people who say that he obtained this ability through the Order of Justice's life and death sacrifice. In any case, if you were to pick the 10 people with the strongest physical strength in Xia City, Crag Burst would barely rank at the bottom. Senior Giant Arm and Senior Zong Ji of the society would probably rank in the middle. They rely on explosive power and skill to win. And this person can rank in the top 3 no matter what. Luo Nan went, oh. Finally, he had a clearer understanding of Bei's strength. He had personally witnessed the abilities of Crag Burst and Giant Arm. Crag Burst was someone who could remain unscathed even under high explosive incendiary bombs. As for Mr. Giant Arm, he was a pure martial artist. The power of his fist penetrated through the metal box and forcefully stuck Jack, who was in the deep blue walker state, to the spot. He truly did possess inconceivable skill. Luo Nan did not know what kind of style he would display when he truly fought. Bei was able to suppress those two in terms of physical strength. His strength could be imagined. At this time, He Yueyin sent out a message in the encrypted channel, pay attention. Bei's physical strength is admittedly powerful, but he has never relied on his physical strength. As for what he relied on, Bei, who was blocking the entrance to the room, had already begun to reveal it. He took a deep breath and lowered his head slightly. His pitch-black skin was already shining with a glossy sheen. Pattern after pattern continued to light up. It was as if an incorporeal object was writing warped characters on his body. The light in the surrounding area warped even more fiercely. It was as if every character had ignited with fire, penetrating deep into his body and burning through the void. The hissing of the words of Krite echoed like this. Aside from the hissing of a viper, it was also like the sound of flesh burning. He Yueyin's interpretation was updated in a timely manner. Bei is a human weapon of the order of justice. Through him, the first ablatum can fully display the power that exists on the mental plane. So there's actually such a method. Luo Nan had gained some experience. This was a method of application that he had never thought of before. For a pure mentally enhanced user, this should be quite a decent change. It was just that the human weapon was not that easy to cultivate. Luo Nan muttered to himself for a bit, but Cat Eyes glared at him. What are you thinking about? Nothing. Luo Nan was more or less duplicitous. It would have been fine if Cat Eyes hadn't mentioned it, but her mention had evoked his train of thought. It seemed that the support he gave to Ink, Roy 1, and even Cat Eyes could be considered a transformation of this method in a certain sense. It was just that he was a bit more passive. A few thoughts flashed through Luo Nan's mind, and Bei took heavy steps forward. His robust body entered the room along with the darkness. The muscles on his body rippled in an orderly fashion, and the bizarre characters seemed to come alive. Every time they shifted, they formed a demonic and bizarre scene. It was as if dark flames were emitting from them as they pounced forward. The dark flames intersected with the area of light around Fairchild's body. In an instant, black and white rays of light fused to form a distorted layer of ash. Bei raised his head, and his pupils were like burning coal. His mouth split open. Fairchild, the truth does not obey your imagination. A bizarre noise seeped out from Bei's voice. It was clearly an unsuccessful harmony. There was a bizarre existence that was speaking in sync with Bei's. Fairchild's response to this was a single sentence. Scram. For the fastest and most accurate novel reading, please visit Chapter 210. Fairchild's snow-white robes fluttered, and the mercury-like radiance suddenly undulated. The gray layer that had just formed was torn apart. Bei's feet left the ground from the powerful assault, and he flew backward involuntarily. Mirror of truth. Through Cat Eye's shared perspective, a group of society members who had the time to watch practically spammed the screen with this word. Fairchild practically did not exert any strength in that instant. Instead, he used the Shield of Truth's outstanding technique to forcefully rebound Bei's attack back, allowing Bei to absorb it all. One only needed to look at the momentum of Bei's raging dark flames to know just how inconceivable it was to achieve this near-total reflection. This was Fairchild's most classic method of judgment. Though he had never determined the name of this move, he had long since given it a proper name in the circle of ability users. It had an illustrious reputation. Luo Nan could see it even more clearly. It was not a simple matter of the material plane, nor was it an effect of physics. It was a structural power formed by the mutual interference of the mental and material planes. He could even capture the entire process of the intense ripples that blossomed on the mental and material planes, separating and merging. In the end, they converged on the material plane to form an enormous impact force. However, Baze's mental plane remained stable. He even took the initiative to change the flow of energy. The impact force on the material plane became stronger, but it also eliminated the damage to the mental plane, maintaining the stability of the domain of words of Krite. From this perspective, Baze was not actually at a disadvantage. The power of the two had always been cutting back and forth between the mental and material planes. The most difficult part of this method lay in realizing the transformation technique of mutual interference. Whether it was Fairchild or Baze, they both achieved this through the structure of the interference of body and soul. Their inhumanly strong physiques and firm willpower were precisely the foundation to realize this transformation. It would be very difficult for Luo Nan to realize a similar transformation mode in his lifetime. However, Luo Nan being able to pry into the marvels of this was an inconceivable matter in and of itself. No one had expressed their views on this deep mechanism in the encrypted channel. Cat Eyes, who was beside him, could not even approach the battlefield with her mental senses. Otherwise, she would most likely suffer a backlash. As for Luo Nan, he was able to do all this easily because of his previous exchange with Fairchild. His thoughts were clear in the domain of the mutual interference of the mental and material planes. But on the other hand, he also vaguely sensed that his family's spiritual senses seemed to be somewhat different from others. He used formatting theory to cultivate his soul strength. In terms of the depth of his clairvoyance, Cat Eyes, Mr. White, and other ability users who specialized in perception and the study of the soul had a faint advantage over him. At the very least, his clairvoyance method had never been successfully tracked by anyone. Ever since he understood the mysteries of soul breathing, he was able to switch between the shallow and deep layers of the mental plane at any time, making it even more difficult for the observed to fathom. In this way, Luo Nan's special clairvoyance was able to penetrate and analyze a large amount of deep information from what ordinary people saw as ordinary phenomena. This information was then fed back to the configuration of his soul, converging into a unique experience. This experience became the most crucial element for the constant growth of his soul strength. Child once said that nothing was more important than observation. At the very least, this was the truth for enhancers. Luo Nan personally experienced the advantages of this most critical ability. Speaking of which, he had always treated this as a burden in the past. Fairchild blasted Baze away and strode out the door. The mercury-like glow on his body was the special characteristic of his body and soul interfering structure and operating energy. There were many special structural details that would only truly manifest in battle, and Luo Nan was fascinated by them. Because of this, Luo Nan's reaction was especially sharp when this structure was attacked. Fairchild had only walked 3 to 5 steps when he suddenly felt an omen of alarm. He shouted, "Careful!" This warning was not aimed at Fairchild. Fairchild knew very well where Fairchild's weaknesses were. Fairchild hoped to endlessly accumulate an advantage on the mental plane to destroy the structural transformation of Fairchild's shield of truth. However, Fairchild did not give Fairchild the chance. The area he controlled was as stable as a boulder. On the mental plane, only a little bit emerged from the water's surface. No matter how turbid waves surged, it remained majestically motionless. However, the words of Krite seemed to possess a technique that could extract power from the pain of the surrounding living beings. It could rapidly transform. When the words of Krite was fully activated, every living being in the surroundings could be considered its fulcrum. Luo Nan's warning was half a beat too late. The words of Krite hissed loudly just as Fairchild's voice fell. The distorted darkness in the room did not ease because of Fairchild's departure. Instead, it grew heavier. On the mental plane, the words of Krite rapidly spread and permeated, covering a large area. Cat Eyes let out a muffled groan. She released her mental senses out of habit. It was as if she had been bitten by a venomous snake. Her 5 senses and 6 senses all received an attack. The instant of pain was like pressing her head into a pool of venom. The pain made her body go limp. He Yuan directly assigned personnel in the encrypted channel. White salt. Got it. I'll be right there. Bai Xinyan responded. Then she went silent. That person's strength should be above average, but Fairchild could not count on her for the time being. Fortunately, the chains deep within Cat Eye's body and soul rang out at this time. The attack was greatly neutralized, and the pain lessened. Cat Eyes could not help grinding her teeth again. She shot Luo Nan an ice, cold glance. In the end, she extended her hand and pulled Luo Nan away. This way. No matter what, they did not dare to go to the main entrance. Fortunately, the 2 firing points from before had pierced through the soundproof wall, giving them room to choose. Luo Nan still wanted to watch the fight between Fairchild and Baze, but he knew that risking his life to do something like this was truly insensible. He glanced outside the door, but Fairchild's figure was already nowhere to be seen. The problem was, Luo Nan saw Xue Weiluan. Xue Weiluan had rushed to the main entrance. He grabbed the legs of a few unconscious special police officers and dragged them inside. Uncle Xue. You guys go first. Xue Weiluan could not abandon his subordinates and escape by himself no matter what. However, 7 special police officers had just been knocked out by Fairchild. Even though Xue Weiluan had a body of godly strength with the aid of the exoskeleton armor, there was always a limit to what he could carry. It was impossible for him to pile up 7 living people and drag them all in one go. More importantly, Xue Weiluan did not understand the mysteries of this fight. The influence of the words of Krite was constantly probing down from the mental plane. Cat Eyes had already suffered a loss, and it would soon affect ordinary people. Xue Weiluan's willpower was extremely strong among ordinary people, but there was still a large gap between him and an ability user. When the time came, he would suffer the same fate as his subordinates, perhaps even more miserable. Cat Eyes hissed and pressed down on her sore scalp. She was helpless against this situation. If this officer Xue had not used Zhang Yingying's channel to communicate with his son, she would have turned around and left without any pressure. However, after that experience, it would be unjustifiable for him to pretend that he didn't know anything. There are a total of 7 people. They need to run at least 2 rounds. Cat Eyes quickly came to a conclusion. She ordered Luo Nan, you climb over first. Connect with White Salt. She turned around to help as she spoke, but Luo Nan pulled her back, wait. Luo Nan's body suffused with a weak light the moment he spoke. For the fastest and most accurate novel reading, please visit Chapter 211. Cat Eye's pupils constricted. She was able to sense that Luo Nan was utilizing his soul strength. However, this magnitude was clearly beyond her scope. Before joining this operation, He Yuan had emphasized to her that Luo Nan was currently undergoing treatment due to the serious imbalance between his body and soul. He couldn't utilize his abilities too much, or else his soul strength would cause serious damage to his nervous system. Luo Nan had already courted death once before. But back then, Luo Nan had been communicating with a crazy believer, causing people to overlook the risks involved. But this time, with the precision of Cat Eye's senses, she was able to sense that there were clearly some minute distortions and deformations in many areas of Luo Nan's nervous system. But what the hell was this light? If Cat Eyes saw it, then it meant that everyone else had seen it. Bai Xinyan, who was rushing over, let out a long sigh. With such a willful patient, we doctors are quite troubled. He Yuan's stern and severe voice cut in. Mr. Luo, please don't overuse your ability to avoid unexpected consequences. These words were quite serious. Cat Eyes received their warning and grabbed Luo Nan's shoulder, wanting to stop him. However, in the depths of his body and soul, the chains rattled. His entire body, from the inside to the outside, was trembling slightly, as if he had been electrocuted. His hands stiffened halfway, and in the end, he couldn't move at all. It was finally here. Cat Eye's heart throbbed. Soon after, her heart was filled with irritation. This was the problem she was most worried about after the operation at Limestone Water Village pub last week. Back then, she had collided with Luo Nan's drawing of the psychic diagram and suffered a backlash. Then she inexplicably fell into Luo Nan's trap. Her body and soul were pierced by an invisible chain, and she seemed to be imprisoned by some sort of method. But in the following week, Luo Nan didn't make any strange movements. Even the existence of the chains gradually became undetectable. It just made her nervous and on edge. And in tonight's operation, she and Luo Nan were within arm's reach. Luo Nan didn't make any excessive movements. Instead, he used the chains to help her get through several difficulties. Just when Cat Eyes nearly believed that she had misunderstood Luo Nan, the essence of Luo Nan's methods was exposed at this critical moment. Right now, she was just like a cat and dog with a chain on it. Its master didn't allow it to move, so it was strangled by the neck and tossed around with all its might. Cat Eyes glared at him with a murderous gaze. It was not an exaggeration at all. She wanted to pounce on Luo Nan in the next moment and bite his throat. As for using soul force, who cares? Just at this moment, Xue Weiluan's surprised voice rang out. Thanks to Cat Eye's long-range perception ability, she did not need to turn her head to see that each of the 7 special police officers had a set of diagrams materializing on their bodies. It was about the size of a fist. Judging from its shape, it was a tetrahedron with inscribed and circumscribed spheres. Right, it was Luo Nan's avatar that appeared in the encrypted channel. Cat Eyes was slightly startled. The raging flames in her heart paused for a moment. With just one look, one could tell that this phenomenon was caused by the interference of the spiritual plane with the material plane. According to the theory of the soul, the effectiveness of mutual interference in the mental and material planes was directly proportional to the order. In other words, the more orderly the external representation was, the more effective the soul power would be on the material plane, and the more effective its control would be. Especially when Luo Nan was doing 7 things at once. He presented 7 sets of diagrams at the same time. Even if each set of diagrams was the same, even if it was just for show. Before she could finish her thought, Cat Eyes sensed the bodies of the unconscious special police officers tremble. It was clear that they were showing signs of regaining consciousness. Cat Eyes finally could not hold back from turning her head. She stared with wide eyes. Xue Weiluan was pleasantly surprised. He finally realized the source of the change in the situation. He turned his head to look. Luo Nan took a deep breath. He did not make any obvious movements, but the 7 sets of diagrams fluctuated at the same time. Fine vibrations were produced on the mental and material planes. A low buzzing sound seemed to ring in Cat Eye's ears. In that instant, the words of Krite, which had been hissing in their ears all this time, became a bit fuzzy. They never recovered. Immediately, a special police officer let out an "ah," and instinctively sat up. Since there was one, there were 2 more. The special police officers on the ground sat up one by one and turned over. Although they were still confused, the miraculous aspect of this method of awakening their intelligence left Cat Eyes and Xue Weiluan dumbfounded. It wasn't just the 2 present. Zhang Yingying sent a single "ah" in the encrypted channel. She felt that it was impossible to describe her current mood. She simply tossed out a string of dumbfounded emojis and frantically spammed the screen. Ah ah ah. Did someone pass on strength to him this week? Or did a certain secretary dual cultivate with him? This rate of progress is illogical. This technique. Before she could finish spamming the last message, she was silently muted by a certain secretary. However, Zhang Yingying's meaning was what the vast majority of people were thinking. Xue Weiluan was a bit better. In any case, he could use his expert abilities to explain things that he did not understand. However, the most painful part for the professionals of the society was that they could not understand things so simply. It must be known that it was always easier to destroy than to build. To instantly knock a conscious person into a comatose state and to instantly wake a comatose person, one was positive while the other was negative. To go from disorder to order, to go from high entropy to low entropy. The difficulty was incomparable. How in the world did Luo Nan do it? Red Fox and Bamboo Pole had just run to the rendezvous point to rendezvous with Papercut. He was still gasping for breath and nearly choked to death by Luo Nan's move. He coughed twice before guessing. Child was the one who overturned this group of special police officers, and then Child taught him a rescue technique? How free could Child be? The truly idle Papercut had been sharpening his nails with a piece of paper, but he had forgotten to do so. At this very moment, it was hard for others to see any reason other than the set of diagrams that had seeped into the chest armor of the 7 special police officers. Look at that person's head. It's exactly the same as these 7 diagrams. Oh right, he just said something about his grandfather's formatting theory. Does it have anything to do with this? What kind of theory is that? Formatting theory? It was a fantastic idea that had been eliminated by reality a long time ago. It had been a long time since she had heard of it. Bai Xinyan strolled through the empty amusement park. The encrypted channel history loaded into her wristband was being searched through her retina. Papercut's formatting theory just so happened to be the keywords she was searching for. She shrugged her shoulders and laughed involuntarily. Also, the 7 diagrams had attracted the attention of practically everyone. Bai Xinyan was no exception. However, the angle of her attention was a bit different from the others. The tetrahedron, inscribed sphere, and circumscribed sphere. It could be considered a very classic example in geometry classes. Its current performance was even more astonishing. However, Bai Xinyan had long since obtained the story of the tetrahedron from an internal report. That scene was much more exciting than its current situation. Soon, Bai Xinyan was able to connect the information she had just obtained with the information she previously knew. Luo Nan, the scout. Oh, he seems to be a psychic. Before they self-destruct, the Luo family found new value in the theory that had been eliminated? Bai Xinyan blinked her eyes, cutting off the information that was constantly refreshing on her retina. She stuffed her hands into the pockets of her windbreaker, pursed her lips, and walked forward at a moderate pace. Looking at Luo Nan's situation, he is only a step away from his final destruction. Oh, isn't this a bit too wasteful? For the fastest and error-free novel reading, please visit Chapter 212. It's a doctor's professional ethics and morality. Bai Xinyan's lips curled into a mocking smile. She refused to let her train of thought continue. She had gained a lot today. What she needed to do now was to play a good role. The next moment, her attention was placed in the direction that a doctor should pay attention to. She watched the video from Cat Eye's shared perspective a few more times. Cat Eyes had been staring at Luo Nan for some time now. She could see that Luo Nan's cheeks, forehead, and other areas with dense nerves had a slight twitching sensation. His pupils had dilated and contracted. She could not see anything below his neck, but it was more or less the same. This was a sign that the nervous system had been strongly stimulated. At the same time, that very eye-catching layer of faint light blossomed from inside to outside. The corresponding power filled and supported these densely packed nerves, minimizing the destructive power brought by the strong stimulation of soul power to the greatest extent. Come to think of it, this was the fundamental reason why Luo Nan was able to use his soul strength without any misgivings. It was also a barrier that temporarily obstructed his path of destruction. Where was his luck? Bai Xinyan made a judgment with the eyes of a doctor. She immediately said in the encrypted channel, "Student Luo Nan's condition is pretty good right now." Is it thanks to Fairchild's punch? Yeah, that punch just now. Luo Nan didn't want the others to make wild guesses like they were watching a show. He borrowed Bai Xinyan's words to give a clear response. Bai Xinyan commented, "The current performance is similar to Fairchild's Shield of Truth. It should be his blessing. When I was in Luoyang City, I once saw the higher-ups of the Order of Justice leading a team to establish a settlement in the wilderness. Within a radius of 100 meters, all the members of the Order of Justice would receive the blessing of the Shield of Truth. Even if they were attacked by mutants, as long as they were C rank or below, most of them would be able to survive the first attack. It is extremely effective. Right, the holy night halo effect of the order increases defense. Zhang Yingying was not silenced for long. She quickly spoke as a veteran gamer. But this way, the effect is only temporary. Yeah, it's temporary. Luo Nan gave a simple response, even though the truth wasn't that simple. He Yueyin felt a headache coming on from the lack of urgency in their conversation. She directly asked Bai Xinyan, "White Salt, report your position." "There's still 40 meters left." I can already see people." Student Luo Nan's face seems to be glowing right now. "It sells very well." Bai Xinyan stopped. Her gaze passed through the soundproof wall and entered the room that was on the verge of collapse. The light over there was dim, forming a large luminous difference compared to where she was, but it didn't affect her at all. She raised her hand and waved, greeting the people in the private room. He Yueyin once again issued an order. Everyone in the private room, after rendezvous with White Salt, retreat according to the designated route. A clear evacuation route immediately appeared in the encrypted channel. At the same time, the route map was also displayed in Officer Shue's command data link. The latter was stunned for a moment, but he still sent the map to his subordinates and asked them to act according to the plan. Quick, quick, quick. Bamboo Pole was the one urging him on. He continued to dutifully refresh information. The sniper cannons at Yulan Hotel are about to finish calibrating. Their firing range covers all of Frost River reality. At that time, someone might be out of his mind and ignore child. If the muzzle tilts up, we'll have to use a mop to collect your corpses. Get lost. I'm talking to you. Cat Eyes was in a terrible mood. She forcefully resisted the evil thought of tearing Luo Nan's throat to shreds. She fiercely pushed Luo Nan, indicating for him to retreat first. Luo Nan could more or less sense Cat Eye's mood. He didn't say much. He leaped over the broken soundproof wall in a few steps and arrived outside. He turned his head and looked inside. The special police under Xue Weiluan were well trained. They quickly discarded their meaningless confusion and followed the plan to cover the evacuation in an orderly manner. Their tactical movements were still standard, although they might not be effective. This is professional ethics. Bai Xinyan expressed her understanding of the special police's actions. Luo Nan's gaze flitted across the face of this carefree and casual beauty. He lowered his eyes and whispered, "Ms. Bai. Hello. Nice to meet you. I have some understanding of you, student Luo Nan." Bai Xinyan winked at him. She looked very cordial and easy to get along with. However, Luo Nan did not forget the 2-hour assignment at the Frost River waterway that she had arranged earlier. Not to mention the burner simulator that was closely related to it. Luo Nan was a bit wary of this beautiful lady. It was because of these thoughts that Luo Nan's gaze turned back and cut across the special police officers. The visualized diagram projected on the chest area of these people's exoskeleton armors had yet to dissipate. It must be said that Luo Nan's move was a bit too high profile. If this scene were to spread out, Yan Yongbo would have a rather unfavorable association with Luo Nan. Luo Nan also considered whether or not he should take back these diagrams. But at this time, a deafening rumble could be heard. The battle between Fairchild and Bays had entered an extremely intense state. The high-end immersion experience area of Frost River reality was rapidly turning into ruins. Fairchild still held an unshakable advantage on the material plane up until now. However, the range of effect of the words of Krite continued to expand. The special ability of the words of Krite to find fulcrums everywhere was too deceptive. Even Cat Eyes had fallen for it. Luo Nan thought for a bit. In the end, he did not take back his blessing. He even added one to Xue Weiluan as a precaution. Bai Xinyan observed with interest. Then she asked, "This move of yours is a bit like our family's old Bai's awakening phonetic interest. It's not just a simple awakening. There's also the flavor of a high-end integration. The method is cautious. Is this a technique of formatting theory? Your family's old Bai?" Luo Nan was stunned for a moment. He then realized that Bai Xinyan was referring to her father, Mr. Bai. From this form of address, it was impossible to tell that they were not on good terms. At the same time, Luo Nan admired Bai Xinyan's eyesight. He really was using the visualized diagram to imbue the rhythm of soul breathing into everyone's bodies, giving them blessings. Bai Xinyan's description was extremely apartment. This kind of lady really gave people a lot of pressure. Luo Nan grew more and more unwilling to converse with Bai Xinyan. It just so happened that a miserable scream came from within the crowd. The scream was sharp and trembling. It was simply the pain of having one's stomach ripped out. Oh, perhaps this was not an exaggeration. Several special police officers had just withdrawn from the room. They hurriedly lowered the body they were carrying. The person's back touched the ground, and his entire body curled up into a ball. His face contorted, and his mouth gaped wide open. But this time, no sound came out. All he could do was smear his face with tears, snot, and cold sweat. Huang Bingzhen. It was hard to say whether this fellow had a good life or a bad one. In the end, he was brought out by the professional special police officers. But his current appearance was worse than death no matter how one looked at it. Bai Xinyan was the only one here with the qualifications to practice medicine. But she only swept a glance over Luo Nan before shaking her head. The words of Krite. Right now, he's already a snake nest. He's also a type of human-shaped weapon. Perhaps some first ablatum is sizing us up through this person. For the fastest and most error-free novel reading, please visit Chapter 213. The unbroken night rain seemed to have no intention of stopping. Instead, it seemed to be intensifying. Standing at the edge of the top floors of the tall buildings, one could see the fine curtains of rain and smoke, as well as the hazy lights of the city. They covered every visible area except for the top floors themselves. The top floors of the 3 buildings that supported Frost River Reality were still wet, but there was no rain falling from above. There was an invisible barrier that separated the top floors of the 3 tall buildings from the autumn rainy night of Xia City. This scene only lasted for about 20 minutes. At this time, there were more than 10 people bustling about on each floor. Some were moving equipment, and some were drawing diagrams on the ground. They shuttled back and forth, and it was full of the feeling of haste. And Wang did not care what the people behind him were doing. He just stood quietly at the edge of the tall building. His skinny and short body was wrapped in a ceremonial robe that did not fit his body. He stood at the top of a tall building that was nearly 1,000 meters tall. He let the wind blow and he looked as if he could be blown off at any time. In reality, he stood very steadily. The shadow of his hood covered his face, but a faint light still seeped through his turbid pupils. The light reflected off the triangular flat roof of the building below, and the red and blue lights of police cars dotted all 4 sides. It was a dazzling sight. Under the chaotic lights, the tide of people endlessly surged out from many emergency passageways and spread out in all directions. They followed the foolish swarming effect and gathered at the outer perimeter. They were like a colony of ants separated by water. They swarmed endlessly. On every floor of the 3 tall buildings, there were large numbers of people sticking to the glass walls of the buildings. They were using all sorts of recording devices and were in spectator mode. They magnified the emotions of panic, fear, and excitement. They turned into turbid clouds that were hard to see and blended into the autumn rainy night. And Wang's drooping eyelids nearly covered both of his eyes, but in reality, he was watching the roiling miasma with great interest. He savored the various subtleties within. Let alone a few minutes, he would not get tired even if he watched for an entire night. What's more, there was an even more interesting scene within the turbid clouds and miasma. Perhaps some first ablatum is sizing us up through this person. The conversation within Frost River Reality was clearly transmitted back to him. And Wang laughed involuntarily. It was just as the other side said. He borrowed the snake nest and used his mental clairvoyance to sweep over the faces of everyone around him. One was the woman in the trench coat who had pointed out the snake nest, and the other was the young man who had been blessed by child's escape of truth. They're all extraordinary people. His mouth moved slightly as he evaluated. The lady in the trench coat had good eyesight and knowledge, and the depth of her abilities was hard to fathom. The psychic waves projected by the snake nest were actually unfathomable. She was at least a B-rank combatant. As for that young man, before he could finish his thought, the scene displayed by the snake nest's psychic wave scan suddenly became blurry and distorted. Then, it completely collapsed. It was obvious that the snake nest he had just built had been destroyed. And Wang was slightly startled. Following which, his shriveled lips slightly parted, revealing a gap that was like a black hole. It could be considered a smile. Interfering with the operation of the words of Krite, not yielding an inch. Your soul power is impressive, and your spirit is full of vigor. Very good, very good. Just as Wang was looking at the scenery and judging the people, there was a black-robed man standing on the landing pad in the middle of the two roofs that were a few hundred meters away from the building he was on. These two were also wearing the attire of first ablatums, but they did not dare to leave their positions to view the scenery like Wang. Instead, they were very solemnly arranging the people around them. Whether it was drawing on the spot or transporting equipment, they were all carefully arranged and compared. They could not afford to make the slightest mistake. However, as the arrangements gradually became more and more appropriate, the two first ablatums found it increasingly difficult to calm down. As experienced first ablatums of the order, they were both well versed in the relevant knowledge and knew Child inside out. Of course, they could determine the odds of success in the upcoming conflict. The two of them communicated through the air for a moment. Finally, they could not help but ask Wang for instructions in unison. They walked on the mental plane that his subordinates could not perceive. The one in charge of communication was first ablatum Jing Xiao, whose position was just below Wang's. Wang, setting up the formation this way is fast, but it's ultimately a stopgap measure. It's too hasty, and it's hard to see full effect. According to our current estimates, the chances of us three first ablatums killing Child, even with the coordination of the formation diagram, do not exceed 30%. This is too risky. Should we reconsider? Wang did not immediately respond. He extended his two hands. His muscles and bones were exposed, and they were speckled with spots. They were filled with the smell of age and decay. They were even trembling slightly. His thumb and index finger, which could no longer be extended, separated and pressed against each other. They formed a triangle, attempting to encompass all of Frost River reality. Why kill Child? Huh? Why kill Child? Wang asked again, haven't you had any doubts from the start of the operation until now? Or could it be that Child has ruined so many of your plans in Xia City over the years that you view him as an enemy? Is it only right and proper for you to take any action against him? The two first ablatums were somewhat dumbfounded. You were the one who proposed to kill Child, right? Now you're blaming us for not questioning, not speaking, and for seeking personal gain? Fortunately, Jing Xiao had worked together with Wang for many years. He knew Wang's temperament, so he went along with Wang's tone and said, Wang, we actually have our concerns. After all, Child is an important figure on that side. He is the backbone of the most promising extraordinary. If things go wrong, the secular side and the truth side will completely shed all pretense of cordiality. This is something we do not wish to see. The two ends of the scale should maintain their distance. They should not interfere with each other and point fingers at each other. Wang adjusted the angle of his finger bit by bit, but he directly determined Child's nature. Therefore, Child is not of the truth side. He is just an extremist, a paranoid, and an executioner. There should not be a place for him in the order. Zheng Zhao's heartstrings trembled. So you want to eliminate him? This way, according to Wang, dealing with Child was not just a request from their side. Instead, it had to be done in a more complex and callous context. But if this is the case, we should have a better opportunity. We should have a more leisurely plan, Wang responded calmly. In terms of probability, any plan against a powerful person like Child has no more than a 50% chance of success. Other than meticulous planning, there is more of luck involved. Today's luck is good. The terrain, information, energy, and even an excuse are all in place. Why not give it a try? Give it a try? Zheng Xiao smiled bitterly. I'm afraid we can't bear the consequences if we don't succeed. If they did not kill the tiger, there would be endless trouble in the future. If they really angered Child, it would lead to crazy revenge. The secular First Oblatums would probably have to sleep with their eyes open. Just the thought of it made them go crazy. What consequences can there be? And Wen coughed twice and turned around. He slowly walked toward the area where the array had been set up. The gate of truth is about to open. Even if that paranoid person is alive, can he be distracted? Stuck. Only one chapter today. Sorry. For the fastest and error-free novel reading, please visit Chapter 214. Zheng Xiao was speechless for a moment. Only when Wang was in position and the array diagrams on the 3 floors began to adjust and operate did Zheng Xiao come to his senses. Are you joking, Wang? Currently, there was news circulating within the order that the gate of truth was about to open. It was said that one could see the true form of the holy relic, the scales of truth, through this mystical gate. They could unlock the highest authority and obtain supreme wisdom. As the first oblatum in charge of local missionary matters, Zheng Xiao knew very well that this was the product of some priests using the recent earthquake in Xia City as a guide to spread their religion. They borrowed a few words from the scriptures of the church and used them as inspiration. They fabricated this rumor, claiming that the location of the Gate of Truth was near Xia City. The earthquakes that had occurred for many days were the result of the holy relic constantly approaching the material world, causing interference. Every year, the priests of the secular side of the Order of Justice would come up with similar rumors to attract believers and expand the influence of the order. Zheng Xiao had long since grown accustomed to this sight. It just so happened that the Order of Justice had seized the lead in analyzing and utilizing the human-faced arachnid. They had made considerable progress in their research and were about to launch a new product of faith. Zheng Xiao wanted to ride on the momentum and did not place any restrictions on these rumors. How could Wang believe such a groundless rumor? How could he tie up Fairchild's hands and feet? The old man's brain is muddled. Another first oblatum, Chengli, sent a message through a private channel. Zheng Xiao did not go along with this. Although Chengli's words were rude, he was Wang's grandnephew. He usually put on an honest and upright face and relied on insulting his own elders to get along with others. God knows what his own family members were saying behind his back. Plus, Zheng Xiao did not believe that there was a problem with Wang's brain at all. Wang was a secret-bound first oblatum, but he was older than 99% of the Heartseer first oblatums. It was just that he was too old when he received the revelation of the holy relic. His fleshly body could not bear it, limiting his accomplishments. Even so, the various priests, first seats, and even the Lord Archoblatum had to address him as Wang. Over time, they even forgot his real name. Wang had never disgraced this respectful title. Perhaps this old man, who was over 100 years old, had an unbearably decrepit body, but his understanding of the situation and his thoughts were clear and deep. He far surpassed these clear-sworn first oblatums. At the very least, Zheng Xiao was ashamed of his inferiority. He could not help but think further. Was there some deeper meaning in Wang's words? Zheng Xiao recalled the relevant records. According to the Holy Bible of the Church, the opening of the Gate of Truth was the beginning of the change of the world. Last time, it was the aberrations that swept across the globe, completely changing the Earth's ecology and breaking the shackles of humanity's potential, bringing a revelation to the human world. The next opening of the Gate of Truth would undoubtedly change the direction of the human world once again. As for whether it would be prosperity or destruction, the canon did not specify. No matter what direction it took, how earth-shattering was this? If the news was true, then the upper echelons of the order would have exploded a long time ago. The first seat of the Sacred Hall of Justice, the various illuminating first oblatums, the high oblatums, and even the elusive Lord Archibladum would have pushed aside all obstructions and gathered in Xia City. A storm had already surged in this place. How could the current situation be the same? Oh, wait. If it was the Gate of Truth, if Xia City was truly in turmoil, what benefits would the Order of Justice gain? As the saying goes, pull one hair and the whole body moves. If such a huge scene were to occur, would they just wait for the government, the military, the ability user society, or other financial powers to share the fruits of their labor? Zheng Xiao suddenly shivered as his thoughts reached this point. Although he was wearing a thick black robe, his entire body still trembled unconsciously. This was not fear, but the sudden excitement and pressure. And Wang, are you saying that the Gate of Truth really exists? Is this true or false? And Qingli forgot to push Zheng Xiao in front of him to block the arrow. He could not help but interject, why isn't there any news from the upper echelons? Even if there was news, it wouldn't be for people of your level to know. Zheng Xiao had always suspected that Wang knew that his greatest strength was his self-awareness. That was why he transferred him over to form a team with Qingli, a young first ablatum whose ambitions exceeded his abilities. However, even though Qingli had 1,000 faults, his brain was not stupid. He immediately fired off a barrage of questions. And Wang, did the Lord Archibladum have a sacred decree? If the Gate of Truth is truly about to open, do we have a grasp on the time and place? Could today's matter be just a reason? Yes, could it be just a reason? Zheng Xiao was a bit uncertain for a time. If it really was what they meant by repairing the plank road in the open but crossing the Tsang road in the dark, they could borrow the conflict and internal strife between them and Fairchild to allow the secular side and the truth side of the order to converge in Xia City in large numbers, forming an absolute advantage. Then what were their current arrangements? Sometimes, Qingli was truly the best partner, especially when his brain was burning. He seized the opportunity to voice out Zheng Xiao's doubts. If it really is like this, then we've all become the stage set? If Fairchild really is someone who can coordinate with us, then what credibility does this reason have? And Wang had only answered one question, but he had clarified many matters. Zheng Xiao and Qingli were both silent. They needed time to digest everything. The night rain grew heavier and heavier. Even the rooftops, which were shielded from the rain, could still hear the sound of falling raindrops. And Wang did not give the two too much time to think. Soon, the mental domains of the two shuddered. Black light and white threads interweaved, and a classical hanging scale appeared in the depths of the void where it was difficult for the eyes of ordinary people to see. It announced its existence to the two. The black and white plates were placed on each side, and each had 3 chains of the same color hanging from them. The central frame was a strict contrast, and the base below was heavy and heavy. Aside from this, there were no other superfluous decorations. It was simple and plain. This was the projection of the scales of truth. It was the paramount sacred object of the order. No matter when, where, or what form it appeared, one needed to display a respectful attitude. The two first ablatums bowed at the same time and silently chanted the scriptures, temporarily washing away the distracting thoughts in their minds. At this moment, the scales of truth were not in a balanced state. The white plate was like a heavy weight. It sank to the bottom, causing the black plate on the other side to rise high. It gave people the feeling that it would topple over in the next moment. This unbalanced state was often the starting symbol of a powerful incantation of the order. Every method after that was to bring the unbalanced state back to a balanced state. They would obtain inconceivable and mysterious power in the process. However, the state of the scales of truth this time was somewhat strange. The white plate that sank was completely empty. At the very least, no heavy object could be seen. On the contrary, there was a small snake the thickness of a chopstick on the other side of the black plate. Its body was coiled around the plate, and its mouth was biting the snake's tail. Turbid clouds roiled around its body. This little snake biting its own tail was the materialization of the words of Christ. It symbolized the negative power of pain that they controlled within Frost River reality. It was also the only counterweight that needed to be constantly adjusted in the later stages of the game to achieve balance. However, from the looks of the unbalanced state, its weight seemed to be rather insufficient. It seems that the operation of the words of Krite is not smooth. Actually, Jing Xiao wanted to ask which sacrifice was placed on the truth side, the white plate. And Xingli said, the absorption of the Krite is constantly being disrupted. Could it be that the ability users inside are up to no good? And Weng declined to comment. Let's take a look. For the fastest and most error-free novel reading, please visit. You're tuning into the Dreamy Love Stories YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.